Issei His is a second-year high school student at Kuo Academy. He likes to finger paint and be by himself. His life changes after he hears one sentence. Rated M for lemons, nudity, language, violence, perversion and awesomeness. Is X harem pairing. Current harem. Akano, Rias, Kaneko, Ophis. More may come. Chapter 1. Hello my readers. This here is a story that I thought up at the last moment. So, my other two stories do not feature Issei as the main character. This time around however, I am featuring him as the focus of the story. So the idea of this story came with the fact that my Blu-ray copy of High School DxD came in the mail today. Smiley face. And it looks great. I've already seen it on a website, but this Blu-ray copy is so much better. It's fantastic. It was $40 in total, and it was worth the money. So what is this story? Well, before you read, let me tell you what this story is about. This is basically a retelling of High School DxD, with similar plots to the main story with some changes by me. I mean, you will see some recognizable things from the light novel, anime and the manga, but I will change some parts up and I will add new parts in. Is this all? Hell no. This story will feature I think every single one of the main characters, except maybe Asia. I may or may not add her. I haven't 100% decided on it, but I have time, you know. Another thing. The personalities of each character, except Asia who will remain the same if I add her, have changed. I am not going to tell you what changed, but I promise you, you will enjoy this story. My name is Issei His. I am 17 years old, 6 feet tall and I weigh about 170 pounds. I am quite underweight for my age, but I also don't have any muscle. I live within the town of Chokan, Japan. I go to a high school known as Kuo Academy and I am a second-year student. I'm not very popular and to be honest, I think I am kind of hated. I guess I am kind of creepy and I am definitely different, which means I am already shunned from my peers. Honestly, I don't hate that I am hated. I have more free time to myself and I live a happy life. So why am I hated, you ask? Well, I enjoy death and violence. Fighting always seemed fun to me, and it would be great if I could fight. I mean, I don't want to go around swinging my fists at just anyone, but fighting for someone I love or fighting for someone who can't fight for themselves. That is what I truly want to do. So how does my fascination with death and violence make me a bit shunned? Well, I like to paint. I love painting as it's just a form of expression for me. What do I paint? Well, I tend to paint scenes from other pictures, but make it more bloody and violent. Like that screaming man on the bridge painting? Yay, I redid it myself, and put the head on the floor. I don't want to plagiarize, so I always put the original artist in the corner, and explain that I am just parodying it. So when my artwork is used for shows, I always get boos or people just look at me like I am disgusting. It's really the women who look at me like that. Men don't generally get along with other men, at least in my experience. The men just go with what the women do, trying to get in their pants. So all in all, it's fine with me if I am hated. It just means that people are haters. They don't like me for me and they aren't worth my time. I love my current life, and I don't want it to change. It's peaceful and full of new experiences for me. I learn new things while I read in the library at lunch. I learn new things about myself when I paint things. Oh, did I mention how I paint? Well, I like to actually finger paint. It is an actual painting style, which is used in kindergarten, but it's actually used by other real artists. It's not very popular, but it's actually a lot of fun. To me, when I finger paint I feel like I am closer to the canvas or the glass. I feel more in touch to my work and it makes me happy to get down and dirty with something I enjoy. So, what can I say that describes me? Well, I am different. I do have my basic male urges, but I don't go around taking peeks through holes in the school like some other guys I know. I don't go looking at girls' panties or being creepy like that. I mean, I do watch porn and yes I do whack it, but that doesn't make me any different from any other single guy. Actually, even married guys whack it. Nothing wrong with that. So I am different. I am a social outcast and I enjoy it. I enjoy my life. I am a carefree man and I do no harm to others. I consider myself a nice person and a gentleman, even if I am not thanked for holding the door open for my classmates or whatever. Yay, people are cruel, but it's not the end of the world. There is a woman for me out there. Somewhere in the deep blue skies. At Kuo Academy, there are 3 great beauties, or should I say 2 great beauties, and our school mascot. So, What is this mascot thing about? Well, it's more the guys calling her a mascot. Well, this girl is not matured in the body yet, despite her being 16. She is pretty flat, though she is budding, but she is also very short. She is kind of, I suppose, like a mascot for some freaky club. She is very cute and looks cuddly. However, this girl is not very cuddly. She doesn't talk much and she seems to look down on others. It's kind of scary, but I don't blame her. Most people in this school are, well, horrible. So the two beauties. Well, there are two very pretty ladies that go to this school. Both of them are extremely pretty and have giant breasts. They are both friends, it seems, best friends. So, the first beauty goes by the name, Akeno Himejima. She is 18 years old and a third-year student. She has long black hair and always seems to be happy, though you do not get to see her often. The other girl is known as Rias Gremory, and she is a bombshell. She has long crimson hair, like blood, and she looks absolutely stunning. She has the biggest breasts in this school and all the guys want her. I wouldn't be lying when I say I think she is very pretty, but I suppose I'm not too interested in her as a girlfriend. I'm not exactly interested in anyone for that matter, as I consider myself a loner. So, why am I telling you all of this? Well, my quiet life of painting and peaceful happiness came to an end, with just one sentence. Would you be my boyfriend? I never knew how much my life changed, until I heard this sentence. So this chapter is done from the viewpoint of Issei. The rest of the chapters is done from another person looking over the story. I just thought this perspective is a great way to start the story. Hey, maybe I will do an entire story done by Issei's perspective and maybe add perspectives of the other girls. Who knows? Read. Review. Mu ch1 of 39. Next, chapter 2. I've decided to write this as I normally do. I am not very good with a perspective of the character. I just don't feel comfortable doing it. So here is the next chapter. This one is helping me move the plot while giving some character to Issei. Enjoy. I have decided on Issei's powers, sacred gear this story. I hope you guys like it when I reveal it. I own nothing. Issei Hyodo stood upon the bridge that overlooked the river below it. It was a slow-moving river, actually peaceful. It was a place he liked to be, to think about things and to chill. He liked to swim, so he would on occasion strip down into his boxers and dive into the water. Today, though, was a bit chilly, so he was just sitting upon the bridge, looking down at the water. Excuse me. Issei turned his head slightly and looked at the owner of the voice through the corner of his eyes. What he saw was very different. It was a beautiful girl, who looked as innocent as a butterfly and fragile like ice. She was very pretty and she stood there with her hands clasped behind her with her back. She was leaning on one foot, looking very cute. Excuse me. Are you Issei Hyodo? Issei stood up and turned to face her. Yes, I am Issei. How may I help you? Oh, it's not that. I just wanted to ask you a question. I am listening. Are you seeing anyone, as in dating? No. Oh well, that's great. So would you do me the honor of going out with me? Issei's eyes went wide and he tilted his head in confusion. You what? I would very much like for you to be my boyfriend. Issei stood there in shock, unsure of what to say. A stranger, who looked like she goes to a different school, just asked him to go out with her. While he doesn't know her, he doesn't honestly see an issue. Plus, blind dates sounds kind of interesting. Sure. I would love to, Issei said with a gentle smile. That's wonderful. So how about this Sunday we have a date? That sounds good. All right. I will wait. Bye. The girl said while running off. Oh, my name is Yuma. The girl said, turning around while jogging backwards. Issei waved goodbye. Goodbye, Yuma. Issei turned to head home, sighing. Such an interesting day. I was just asked out. Me, of all people. This has got to be a dream. Issei said with a laugh at the end. However, Issei froze and turned his head. Standing at the top of the stairs near the bridge was the school mascot, Kaneko. She was looking at him for a moment, then she walked away. I have been getting this weird vibe all day. All damn day. I swear someone is stalking me, Issei said, shaking his head as he headed home. It was the next morning and Issei met up with Yuma on his way to school. He smiled his gentle smile and they both walked together to school. They began to talk about daily life at the school, and apparently Yuma was a transfer student. Issei told her all about the school and told her what to avoid and what to embrace. He mentioned that he would not be available after school for about 3 hours as he uses Friday afternoons for his artwork. Yuma said she might stop by and check him out. Issei bit his lip as he felt a pair of eyes on him, but when he turned to look, the feeling was gone. Shrugging that it was nothing, he continued walking. However, he felt it again after a few minutes, and when he turned he just saw the very popular guy, Kiba, surrounded by girls. He was laughing and talking, and Issei felt a bit better. Damn. Why am I feeling like I am being watched? Something weird is going on. Entering the school grounds, Yuma and Issei both walked past an old school building, used by a certain club. It was known as the Occult Research Club, and it housed the two great beauties and the mascot. For this reason, the club got a lot of applicants, but everyone was denied. It was strange. Even the handsome popular guy Kiba was in the game. It was really strange that all the popular people were in the club, yet everyone else was denied. Within the clubhouse, Rias walked away from the window, going back to the chessboard. So, do you know him? Rias asked. Who? Akeno said. The guy walking with that girl. Oh, his name is Issei His. He is a second year and has won numerous awards for his artwork, though he is generally looked down upon by the students of the school. He is more of a social outcast, and he doesn't seem to mind it at all. He is cute, but I am sure he isn't very popular due to what he enjoys. Why do you ask? It seems the enemy is making their move. Yes, the enemy made their move yesterday afternoon, Kaneko said. Ah, so I was right to send you to watch him. I think he suspects me of watching him. Let him. I don't think it would matter in the end. So what are we going to do? Akeno asked. Well, that is entirely up to him in the end. We must hope for the best. Looking at the chessboard, Rias moved her queen. Ah, checkmate. Akeno looked at the board and frowned. Ah. I tried to make it more difficult for you. And I thank you for that. Kaneko, it's time for you to go to school. Yes. With that, Kaneko left, leaving the two beauties alone to talk. Back in the school, Issei began showing Yuma around. He showed her all the important places like bathrooms and such. He showed her where her classrooms were for her classes, and then he departed for his own. It was about lunchtime now, and Issei had free periods from there on out. He decided to work on his artwork now so he could spend time with Yuma in the afternoon. He placed his large canvas in the main hallway near the entrance, giving him plenty of room. The cafeteria was across the hallway itself, so he could go eat if he wanted. Issei placed some paint in separate bowls, giving him multiple colors, and he closed his eyes, preparing to think. He then smiled and began to paint, not actually taking any art from someone else. He dipped his fingers into the blue paint and began to paint a serene setting deep in the mountains. In the far back was mountains in the clear blue sky, a few birds. He was only drawing the backgrounds first and making his way closer and closer. He then painted a forest and a pretty blue lake. It was then that he got very into his work. He grabbed the orange and began to paint fire in the trees, and smoke that billowed into the top. Issei gathered quite a crowd now, looking at his artwork. They were curious to what he was doing in such a public setting, and a lot of the kids were actually beginning to see him in a new light, if he painted serene settings, but then he began to paint fire. He began to paint animals on fire. He painted death and destruction. He painted crocodiles in the water eating animals, and the destruction of the area. He then painted a giant meteor coming in, which was going to kill everything. This got him some hatred looks. Oh, what a loser. No one likes you, Issei. These are disgusting paintings. He began to have food thrown at him and his canvas, which began to actually wreck the painting. Not one to keep the paintings like this, he began to hold onto the edges of the canvas, gripping it with a death grip. Fists balled up like he wanted to fight. Yuma was there now, looking at him from afar, curious to what was going on. She then spotted something. On Issei's face and neck, on the right side was his veins. These veins were black and he looked angry. He was then pushed into his painting, getting his entire body covered in paint. The boy who did it was laughing and walking away with the girls near him, holding on to the two girls who clung to him like he was some savior. Issei was now on his knees, trying to control his anger. His face was halfway between anger and peace, his desire for fighting with the desire for peace. He then took in a deep breath and breathed it out, calming himself down. Issei stood up and took the canvas, folding it up. It was finished anyway, but it was useless now. It was completely destroyed and was not really worth trying to fix as it would just mess it up anyway. He took the folded up canvas and deposited it into the trash can, then took his paint and covered the bowls up. He then left the schoolyard, completely dirty and upset. Issei was upset because of how cruel people can be. This was the first time they actually destroyed his own work, and physically bullied him. He ignored the verbal abuse, but this time they put their hands on him. It was really upsetting. Issei was not one to cry, so he didn't, but he was close to letting his anger get released. He then felt a pair of eyes on him, and when he turned, he saw the great beauty, Rias Gremory, staring at him from the clubhouse. She looked at him with indifference, which made him put her down as the same as everyone else. He turned away and walked off, going home. Within the clubhouse, Rias was looking at him. "Do you think he's cute?" Akeno asked. "Huh." Rias said, turning. "Oh, yeah, he's cute. You know, maybe we should have stepped in and stopped those people from abusing him." "Perhaps, but I am not sure if it would be a good idea to stop the chain of events. It's a risk either way." "Yes. I know. Check." Rias walked over and moved her queen. Checkmate. "Ah. You got me again." Read. Review. Moo. Previous ch2 of 39 next. Chapter 3. Here is the next chapter of my story. I have decided that I shall change Issei's powers around a bit, but I think you will like it. I own nothing. It was Sunday now. Saturday came and nothing happened that was worthy of mention, but Sunday was the date between Yuma and Issei. Sure, Issei didn't have feelings for her yet, but it was kind of fun to go out and have some fun with someone for once. Nothing wrong with enjoying life, plus who knows, maybe Yuma was right for him. Issei's parents died 4 years ago due to a car accident, so Issei was basically left alone. He was too old to be orphaned, plus his parents had a nice nest egg. All of their belongings, including the paid-off house, went back to Issei, so he had enough to live on until he got a job and whatnot. Issei never really got along with his parents, and his parents never actually paid him much attention after he was 8. Once he reached about 8-9ish, Issei's parents began to ignore him and focus their attentions on their work. Issei began to fall into a deep depression around 10, when he learned that his parents were actually ignoring him and just tolerating him, it seemed. This was the trigger for Issei's change in attitude. Issei was actually very popular during his first 2 years in elementary, but then he began to lose his friends after he fell into a deep depression. Around his 5th year, which he was 11 at the time, Issei lost everyone. He did not have any friends, nor did he have parents who really cared about him. Sure, they fed him, kept him safe and dry, but they no longer paid him any attention. They let him fend for himself. So, around 11, Issei was now depressed from the lack of attention and began to paint. This was when he discovered he had a talent for painting death, destruction and misery. Issei was 13 when his parents died, and not much changed in Issei. Issei loved his parents, but he also hated them. He did not know what to feel, so he painted his way to happiness. Issei's parents were cremated and then tossed in the Nile River in Africa. Issei was not there for it. When Issei was 14, he began to actually change into how he is now. Happiness through being alone and avoiding people. He loved being alone as he was always alone. He hated other people as he knew how cruel other people can be. Issei felt their cruelty when he was 11, facing the constant shunning and the verbal abuse from the other kids. He never once cried. He just took the pain and placed it into his paintings. However, kids got crueler and crueler every year, but never once did they actually ruin his paintings. Issei was finding it harder and harder to control his anger, and he felt there was this power inside of him whenever he felt rage or hate or depression. So, Issei turned into what he was when he was 14, but when he reached 16, he did think about trying to become normal and maybe having friends. Yuma was the first person to ever approach him about being a friend, or in this case, a boyfriend. It was what Issei wanted ever since the year before. Now he might be able to be normal. Minus the painting, of course. He would never stop painting, but perhaps he may stop painting the misery. Issei made his way into the shopping district of his small town. He waited at the corner of the bus stop, about 10 minutes before he was supposed to meet with Yuma. Issei began to feel the same feeling of being watched, so he nonchalantly began to look around. He then spotted the mascot, Kaneko, on a nearby bench, eating a popsicle. She was currently not looking at Issei, so Issei did not register her as the stalker. He just thought it was an odd coincidence. "Hey Issei," said Yuma, who began running down the sidewalk. She stopped in front of Issei and smiled an innocent smile, bringing a gentle smile to Issei's face. Have you waited long? Not at all. I got here about 10 minutes ago. I just wanted to get here early is all and not make you wait. Oh, that's so sweet of you, Yuma said, gripping onto Issei's arm. She smudged his arm between her nice soft breasts, making Issei a bit red in the face, but it was more from embarrassment. He knew she was being innocent, but he was also a man and tits are the best. Come on. Let us go look around, Yuma said as she dragged Issei along like a puppy dog, making him blush. Kaneko stood up from her bench, slowly following the two as they went around the town. She texted Kiba on her phone, telling him to keep an eye out. He replied with a yes. Kaneko then began to enter the shopping district, ready to follow the orders of Rias. Stopping now, Yuma dragged Issei into one of those cheesy photo booths. She deposited her money, shoving him inside, and began to take goofy pictures. Issei was not one for pictures, but he smiled or was shocked as Yuma began to do the weird poses. Yuma then at the last picture, planting a kiss on his cheek, making him red. The next stop for the couple was a small store that sold different types of jewelry. On sale, there was this beautiful necklace that had the symbol of chaos, which was 8 arrows that pointed out evenly across a circle. The arrows were technically connected, so it was more of 4 doubled-sided arrows all crisscrossed. Issei smiled and bought the necklace, liking it for himself, but he then placed it upon Yuma's neck. Issei bought her the necklace because she was just so sweet to him and he felt really happy someone was being nice to him for once. Yuma herself thanked him with a kiss on his bottom lip, making him blush again and rub the back of his head nervously. He wasn't used to the affection. The next stop was a small diner, so they sat down with menus. They talked about their orders and Yuma brought up a dinner for 2. It was pretty unhealthy, but it was just a big plate of nachos. It was topped with spicy chili. They began to talk as they waited for their food, talking about school and Issei's paintings. Issei looked through the window from the corner of his eye, and there again sitting on a bench, eating a large sausage hot dog, was Kaneko. Issei was currently listening to Yuma, but now he was focusing on Kaneko, who suddenly got up and left. Is she following me? What is going on here? Why am I being watched? However, Issei then focused back on Yuma, talking with her again. The sun was now setting and Issei and Yuma were both walking towards the fountain in the nearby park. It was the end of the date, and Issei was happy. Yuma then ran ahead and turned around in front of the fountain. This date was fun, Yuma said. Yes, it was. To commemorate this occasion, I have a favor to ask of you. A favor? What could she possibly want? A good night's kiss? Sure. What can I do for you, Yuma? Would you die for me? Yuma asked in a very distinct but sultry voice. No longer was it in the innocent voice of Yuma, but it was done in the voice of a sexy demoness. Issei raised a brow but shook his head. I'm sorry. I must be a little lightheaded. Could you repeat that for me? Yuma got closer and whispered into his ear. Would you die for me? Stepping back closer to the fountain, Yuma began to change her form. Her normal Sunday clothing of a t-shirt and a miniskirt, turning into some sexualized costume that barely covered her body. She grew taller, her breasts grew much bigger and fuller, and her thighs looked juicier. She was no longer the innocent Yuma he once knew, but the sexy demoness. But then, there were those wings. Giant black wings with feathers. It was something out of science fiction or something. What? Was all Issei could spit out. A spear of light formed in Yuma's hand, and she smiled down at him. She then threw the spear into Issei's gut, sending him to his knees, looking down at his wound, then back up at her. I'm sorry. While the date was fun and all, you were just too much a risk to keep alive. Your power was something my superiors didn't want around. I am sorry. Issei then fell onto his back, sprawled out in a pool of blood, his body freezing up on him. He was dying, and he knew that. If you want to blame someone, blame God. He is the one who gave you those powers. Well, I have to go. And the date was fun, Yuma said before flying off into the skies. Issei laid on the ground, dying, his mind beginning to shut down. He lost consciousness long ago, but his heart was still beating, though it was slowing down. Coming out of a red circle, Rias, Akeno and Kiba all walked closer to Issei, who laid on the ground, bleeding out. Kaneko came from the shopping district, eating another hot dog. He's dying. Not for long. I have decided that I will save him. Are you sure about this, Rias? You know as well as I do that if our theory is correct, he is a danger to us all. Akeno asked. I am sure and I know about the risks. But I don't believe we should just let him die. You were the one wanting to save him earlier, weren't you? You have a point. Rias knelt down and smiled down at Issei, who had his eyes open but lost any sort of connection to the outside world long ago. You shall live for me, Issei. You shall become one of us. And live your life as one of us. You shall live for me. Read. Review. Mu. First, previous ch3 of 39 next. Chapter 4. Alrighty. So what's first? Well, I suppose some news on this story. I think I'ma make this story a lot longer than I first intended on, and it's thanks to a few select reviewers. They all wanted something different from the anime, so I decided while it will have many parts like the anime, I will make things up on my own. Right now, I have determined there are at least 2 to 3 arcs for this story. We are almost done with the first arc, I think, or at least halfway. The second arc probably will be part of the first arc or a very short arc. Cheeky smiley face. The third arc would be pretty long though. Haha. So yay, this might be a pretty long story. I dunno. Cheeky smiley face. Anyways, about this chapter. I have placed 3 hints, teasers. Well, different hints. Can you find them and tell me them? One of them I have hidden though. Find them all and receive a shoutout and possibly your name into the story as a character. Cheeky smiley face. I have also placed a pop culture reference into this story, so if you can find it and tell me where it's from, I would give you a shoutout. Cheeky smiley face. Stab. 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 Over and over, Issei watched as his body was stabbed over and over by his girlfriend Yuma. It was a nightmare. Then he began to see the torturing from the kids on the Friday before the date. He was called many names and he was pushed into his artwork. Now, he began to live through the days again as he was treated like trash for years and years. He lived through his old life and only the painful memories. The memories of the cruel nature of human beings. Then the last memory. The one of his parents. But this was different. In this one, he watched as his parents died in a car accident. But then he watched from a different angle. It was no accident. There was someone on a roof and this person threw a spear of light at their car, forcing them to blow a tire and swerve right into an oncoming 18-wheeler. Issei began to cry, wanting to know what is going on and wanting it to be over. But it was not over. Issei began to stir awake now, but before he left, he saw one last thing. A massive black dragon flew across the night skies. His scales were black like the void, and his eyes were pitch black with no visible pupils. The dragon was long and skinny for his size, but he was massive. He was so large, he was about the size of a football field. If he curled up, he would fit in a stadium, though snugly. The dragon then turned to Issei and began to fly down to him, and this was when Issei shot awake, his sweat staining the bed and his tears staining his face. That dream. It was. Oh God, Issei said before breaking down into tears. He held his head in his face, and began to sob. The memories that he suppressed was surfacing. He was shaking in sadness, but then his tears began to stop, and around his shirtless body, a black web-like pattern was around his heart, and it was pulsing as Issei began to shake in anger and fury. He felt so angry at the world and how quickly people were so cruel. He didn't believe that Yuma killed him as he thought it was just another nightmare, but the other stuff that happened involving the kids at school. That happened and it was angering Issei. Issei sat on his bed in anger for about 5 minutes before he closed his eyes and began to calm down. He took a deep breath and let it out, calming himself down. There is no need to get worked up, but it just felt so good letting my anger and despair out. It felt so good imagining their suffering. But it isn't meant to be, so I must move along. He got up out of bed and put on a clean white t-shirt and a pair of black shorts. He was not going to go in uniform to school today, and the people in charge can kiss his ass. He made his way downstairs for breakfast, ready to go to school. Unknown to Issei, during his fit of rage, the black pattern grew in size, and the top right corner of the pattern, which would be the left if you looked at it from the front, began to make its way up his chest towards the right side of his neck. It stopped just in the middle of the chest, approaching the right nipple. Finally making his way into the schoolyard, he saw blood-red hair in the corner of his left eye. He looked that way and saw the bombshell, Rias looking at him from the schoolhouse door. She was walking out of the house and making her way towards him. He looked forward as he knew it wasn't for him, not that he really gave a shit, and made his way towards the school doors. He passed the fountain when Rias began to walk right behind him, and he felt the same feeling he felt. He was being watched again, but by who? Hey. Rias spoke. Issei didn't answer as he knew it wasn't for him. Issei then finally broke free from her sight as he entered the flood of students in the main hallway. He just went in there and made his way through it like he was a shadow. Rias frowned a bit. Damn. I wanted to talk to him. Sigh. Ah well. Rias made her way into the school and began to make her way through the mess of students, wanting to get to her own class. This was her day to have an actual early class. Issei, like a liquid, easily got through the flood of students. He sighed. He kept his attention on his shoes. He kept on walking, making his way to his own class. However, Issei looked up once and found himself walking right into another bombshell, a Kano. His face, somehow, found its way right in between her massive, soft, jugs. Oh, were they soft. Akano let out a quiet moan, smiling a bit. Aren't we a bit aggressive? Issei quickly got himself out from in between, and bowed his head. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, Issei said, running around her and making his way into class. Hey. Akano tried to say, but Issei turned the corner and escaped. Ah, I wanted to talk to him. Ah well, it was still fun seeing him all flustered like that. Akano said, licking her middle finger once like a sadist with a blush on her face. Still running towards his class, which was all the way on the far end of the school, giving him a decent jog, Issei turned another corner, but this time ran right into the mascot, Kaneko. He then found himself flying across the hall, smacking right into a brick wall. He collided right into the brick wall, but then found himself impaled by 3 nails which were sticking out together. He fell to his knees afterwards, in which Kaneko began to walk up to him. Hey, Kaneko said quietly, but Issei got up and kept on walking, wanting to get to the bathroom to was this wound off. Issei arrived in the bathroom and took off his white t-shirt, which was stained with blood on the front, and looked at the wound. Small streams of blood were coming out, and they looked like they were getting smaller and smaller. The blood itself was strange. The blood was still red, but it looked like it was darker than what blood usually looks like, but Issei shrugged and ignored it. He then watched his wound seal itself up, and actually heal. The blood completely stopped and the wound began to disappear on its own. What? He said, only to hear the school bell. He quickly put the slightly stained white t-shirt on. Aw shit, gotta go. Issei said, running out of the bathroom and finally making his way into his classroom, right before the final bell. He quickly took the seat in the far back corner, hiding his face in his arms. The class went by pretty smoothly, though he felt that the students around him were staring at him. It was the blood on his shirt which attracted their attentions, and he felt the disgusting stares. The class finally let out, and as the final bell finished ringing, Issei was approached as he was packing up his things. Hey there. A male said. It was Kiba. The girls that were staying behind were beginning to talk. What is Kiba Cakes doing with Loser Boy? Kiba, no. Please don't talk to him. You will catch creepy. Issei ignored the girls and looked up. What do you want? Hey, don't get so hostile. I just wanted to talk. There is nothing to talk about. Leave me alone. Issei said, walking past Kiba, who was trying to talk to him. Issei just totally blew him off. Well, that was kind of rude, though expected, I suppose. As Issei passed the girls, they all gave him even dirtier looks. How dare he insult Kiba? He should have been grateful Kiba graced his creepy presence with his own. What a disgusting boy. You said it. He is almost as disgusting as those 2 perverts. Oh, them? Yuck. I heard they were talking about porn again. Again. How disgusting. I know, right? The 2 girls said, leaving. Kiba also made his way out, heading to his next class. The day went on pretty well and Issei was leaving the school. He then felt the same chill down his spine, as he knew he was being watched. Damn it. Who's watching me? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Man, I got no privacy. All I want is to be left alone, but why do I always feel like I am in the Twilight Zone? Issei thought as he finally left the school grounds in a hurry. He made his way into his own home and placed his bag in his room. He already finished his homework, so he quickly made a nice sandwich and headed outside, wanting to take a nice walk in the night, wanting to relax. I wonder where Yuma is. I haven't seen her all day. Oh, I know. Issei quickly took out his phone and looked through his phone as he was walking. That's strange. She isn't in my contacts nor is she in my messages. What the hell? Issei then found himself at the fountain, standing there looking into the water. This is where I died in my dream. Issei said, rubbing his head. Man, that was such a crazy dream. Hey. Issei then jerked his head up and looked behind him. A man who wore a black trench coat and a black fedora stood there looking at him. He then felt a chill down his back, seeing the man look at him with malicious intent. Issei then walked the way he came, heading back home, shivering. The man began to follow him and Issei sped up. Then the man sped up so Issei got into a full-blown sprint. However, the man then flew right in front of Issei in a swirl of black feathers. Black feathers. Yuma. However, it was not Yuma but this man. How interesting. You show no signs of disappearing, no signs of your master around, and there are no signs of any circles appearing. I take it you are a stray. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, how cute. A virgin one. Oh, that is just rich. Ha ha ha. The man said as he formed a nice blue light spear. He then shoved it into Issei's stomach, sending him to the ground. Ah. Issei yelled out in pain, going to one knee. He then touched the spear, only to feel even more intense pain. What is this pain? Damn it. Hurts, don't it? It's a spear of light. It causes massive pain to your kind and it is your mortal weakness, but that is so strange. I thought the first one was going to be enough, but you are still standing. He said as Issei stood up to try to walk away. Try this one. The man said, throwing another one. However, this one entered his right lung and penetrated him, sending him to his hands and knees. Oh God, this pain. Please, stop it. Issei said, spitting out blood. Why are all you people so cruel to me? Still alive? You are really one tough cookie, but his one shall do the trick. The man said, running into the air and stabbing downwards with another spear. This spear entered his body right below the heart, barely missing it. Issei fell to the ground unconscious immediately as the third spear struck. The pain was too much, but he was still alive. Wow, you have got to be kidding me. 3 spears and your heart still beats. You really are a strong one and something that we are glad to be rid of now. Goodbye, stray devil. The man aimed a spear for his head and threw it at him, but a burst of black energy with a red outline blasted the spear away. Who the hell interferes? The man said. Rias then stepped out of a red circle with her other servants. No one lays a hand on my servants. Red hair. Ah, so the little stray is part of the house of Gremory, huh? Huh. Well, I see there was a misunderstanding. You lay another finger on him and you will regret ever meeting me. I thank you for the warning, so allow me to give you one. You should keep an eye on your servants from now on. He may not meet someone as courteous as me, he said. I thank you for the friendly advice, but keep in mind if any harm comes to him, I will come for you. Hey. The man said, flying away into a portal. My name is Donasik. I pray we do not meet again, Rias Gremory. Rias sighed then looked down at Issei who was bleeding out heavily from the attacks. He is going to die soon, Rias. Akano said. Though I am very surprised he took so many attacks and is still alive. Well, he won't die. I will see to that myself, Rias said with a smile. Unknown to anyone, including Issei, the black pattern on his chest has grown again, this time completely covering his chest in the black pattern, though the top right corner was closer to his neck. Read. Review. Quack. First, previous ch4 of 39 next. Chapter 5. Here is another chapter. I don't think it's very good personally, but I think it serves its purpose. Next chapter I think I will introduce Issei's new powers. Winking face. Mwahaha. I own nothing. Oh, another dream without the memories of losing his parents or any of the other bad stuff. The memory was of Issei painting his own masterpieces, creating wonderful works of art. He was happy in this dream, but then black fire blew away the surroundings and left Issei all alone in the darkness, until the large black dragon before flew into the picture. It then flew right down to Issei with a roar, and landed near him, surrounding Issei with his body, and looking down at him. Hello, Issei. Who are you? You will not understand just yet, I don't think. But there is another world than what you know currently. Does the winged bastards who haunt my nightmares count? Those aren't nightmares. Those events happened to you, and to me. What do you mean? In due time, Issei. I will explain it to you, but know this. I am with you until the very end. With that last sentence, Issei woke up. He groaned as his alarm went off with some loud music from his MP3. It was a heavy rock, metal band, Disturbed, and it was playing The Curse. He reached up and tapped the off button, groaning. Oh God. I am so sleepy. Damn you Satan for making me have this strange nightmares. It wasn't Satan who did any of this, said a voice from behind Issei. Issei turned quickly and fell backwards off the bed at the sight of Rias Gremory, sitting up completely naked on his bed. She showed no signs of hiding her body, and Issei could see everything from her great fun bags to her cave of wonders. He quickly looked down and saw he was naked. What the hell is going on here? Issei demanded. He knew that Rias looked at him quite often and he does not remember anything from doing these things. Why are you in my room and why are you naked? Because that is how I healed you, silly. You did what? So you were the one who healed my wounds? Yes. Though I am very surprised your skin is flawless and you aren't in any pain. It is very interesting that you suffered so much damage and yet you are alive and well. I really don't care about how awesome my body is, but why the hell are you following me all the time? You don't think I notice? All of you. You people are following me. You. Akano the sadistic beauty. Kaneko the cute mascot. And Kiba the boy all the girls want. I notice them following me or watching me. Why the hell are you people following me? Calm down. Screw you. I do not know why you did these things, but you will leave my house immediately. I have to go to school. With a sigh, Rias got up and began to put on her clothes now. Issei stood there in all his glory, glaring down at Rias, even though he had a pretty big boner. I mean, Rias is hot as hell. Rias looked back at Issei, who stared her down. You know, you should be thanking me. I did save your life. I am grateful for that. Issei said, his face softening up quite a bit. I just don't appreciate being followed or watched, nor the fact you basically broke into my house. I had to take you somewhere to heal you, Issei. You were badly injured and well, to heal you our bodies have to touch directly, so that's what I did. With a sigh, Issei rubbed his temple. Alright. I forgive you for the breaking into my house, but that does not excuse you for spying on me. Yay. You coming? Yay, sure, whatever. Issei said, going to get dressed. He quickly got dressed into his normal clothes, a black t-shirt and white shorts. He then made his way down into the kitchen and made breakfast for himself. Then he looked at Rias. Want something? That would be nice. Issei then began to make the same breakfast for her. Eggs, bacon, biscuits and sausage gravy. He placed the meal on the table and served himself, eating the unhealthy yet tasty breakfast. He was quiet and not talking at all, thinking to himself really. He wondered if the dragon in his dream was telling the truth to him or not. Issei? I think we should talk later this afternoon. Do tell. I just think it's smart we talk. It's kind of important and about last night. The part where apparently I was stabbed 3 times by some dude with black wings. Yay. I rather not talk about it. Those are fallen angels. Excuse me? Oh, look at the time. Let's go, Issei. With a sigh, Issei stood up. Yes. Entering the school grounds, Issei walked with Rias, staying right next to her. He began to hear whispers and rumors about him, paying her or doing her homework. Then he heard them asking one another if he was cool now and they said it was working. Issei sighed and just rubbed his nose, hating this shit already. This was turning into a crappy day, even if he got to see a beautiful naked lady in his bed, which he knew he liked seeing, but was so angry he ignored his teenager hormones. I want you to come to the old clubhouse. Yay, we'll see. I mean it, Issei. You should come. We will see Rias. I am not one to take orders from another. Rias sighed and walked up the stairs, leaving Issei behind, who then made his way to his class. Getting onto the second floor, Rias heard her friend, Sona Citri, who was the school president, talk. Are you sure it is safe to make him a devil? You know as well as I do that we don't know what kind of powers he has and that he could become a danger. In fact, we know he is a danger to everyone. He is going to snap someday. I know. It's a risk, but I think if we can fix him we will have a powerful ally. With a click of her tongue, perhaps. Just keep in mind that if he goes haywire, it is on your head. I know, Sona. Has he found out yet? No, but I suspect Sirzex to find out soon enough. You better be careful. I understand. Both of them then walked towards their classroom, talking about girl crap. It was the end of the day now and Issei made his way outside. He looked towards the schoolhouse Rias was talking about. He bit his lip and just stood there, deciding. He was not sure what to do, but he just sighed and walked towards the schoolhouse, and entered the building. He quickly navigated the building and entered the main room, which was labeled, Occult Research Club. It sounded kind of silly, but he entered anyway. He took a seat across from Kaneko, who was munching on chocolate. He placed his bag on the floor next to him, laying his head back and closing his eyes. Oh, I am going to regret this. I fucking know it. He waited about 5 minutes in the clubhouse and Kiba entered. Rias and Akeno came about half a minute later, with Rias taking a seat on the big desk in the back. Alrighty. Today we welcome our newest member, Issei His. Issei then opened his eyes and raised a hand. Yes, Issei? When did I join this club? When you became one of us. I am going to regret this, but what do you mean by us? Devils. Devils? So you were telling me that all of us here are devils? Powerful creatures of the night that trick humans out of something or whatever. Yes. I am supposed to believe this. Yes. Watch. Out of everyone's backs, including Issei's, were large bat wings. Issei's eyes went wide, looking at Rias. Yes, Issei. You are a devil now. Issei sat back down, rubbing his temple. He was so utterly overwhelmed from all of this. Was he really some supernatural creature? Any questions, Issei? Yes. Who? What? Who stabbed me last night? A fallen angel. Just like Yuma, who you dated a few days ago. She exists? How? She was no longer in my phone or anything. She erased her existence from all technology. We can do that. Issei began to grit his teeth and clench his fists at the thought of her, but he then took a deep breath and calmed down. I see. So, I was killed by my ex-girlfriend, huh? Yes, and I revived you as one of my servants. You belong to the House of Gremory now, Issei His. You are my slave. With a smile, though fake, Issei turned to face Rias. I do not do well with being a servant or a slave to someone. Especially, someone who I do not know. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You are what you are. Ah well. I am what I am, huh? Well, I am leaving, so goodbye. Issei said, grabbing his bag and heading to the door. A sword was placed at Issei's back now, which made Issei freeze. I cannot let you leave. Those who dare leave their masters are strays and are killed on sight. Is that so? Issei said. Well, allow me to repay you for your words of wisdom. With a brutal backhand, Issei sent Kiba flying across the room and into the wall nearby. How dare you assume you own me? All of you are the same. Heartless monsters who cause pain and misery for others. Go to hell. Issei said, racing out of the door now. He had to get out of there. He quickly ran all the way out of the schoolyard and down the road, heading to his house, which was just a mile away. He felt no one was following him, so he slowed down as he reached his front porch. He then quickly entered his own home, locked the door behind him and began to make his food. Issei stood there while making some food, just uncertain of where to go. He knew that he was not human anymore. But were devils really real? Is this all a nightmare? He really wants it to just be a nightmare. But something deep down in him knew it was all real. And his torment hasn't even ended. Unknown to him, the black webbed pattern on his body grew. The marking reached his jaw now. As soon as Issei ran out, Rias quickly went over to Kiba. Are you okay? Yay, I am fine, but damn, he packs a punch for a new one. Yay, I see that. I fear that I made a mistake bringing him back. Everything will be alright. You can't exactly blame him for being this way. No. And we are to blame. Yes, it was our mistake to make him suffer. Akeno then spoke up. What are we going to do with him? I think he should be okay if we let him be alone for a while. We can try to find a solution. He might run into the fallen ones again. Then he will die. Rias said. I don't think we should be watching him for a while. Let him handle this on his own. The others all nodded and began to head home themselves. Rias stayed behind, of course, sleeping here. Oh, Issei. I really hope you return to us with your sanity. Read. Review. Mu BLUECELEBI. MOOOOOOOOOOO. First, previous ch5 of 39 next. Chapter 6. Here is the next chapter of the story. The next chapter that will set in motion the events that will put this story back on track with the anime in the future. Cheeky smiley face, this story features a dark moral. You pick on someone enough, they will snap, and when they snap, prepare your anus. I own nothing. It was the dragon again. He laid on his belly, his head on his two front paws. Legs. Claws. He just looked at Issei while looking completely lazy. He was listening to Issei's worries about the devils and everything that has happened. What do I do? Issei asked. I really don't have an opinion. I existed before the dawn of creation, and I existed before these friends of yours. I existed before the gods of the universe. I am the void. I have really no desire or reason to push you into any path. Your path is your own. All I can say is this. I will accompany you with whatever path you choose. My primordial power is yours. Issei looked down in thought, but then he looked up. In the passion of the moment, I completely forgot I don't know anything about you. Who are you? My name. I've gone by many, I suppose, but the one I am fond of is Erebus. It means darkness pretty much. I existed before you humans walked the earth. I existed before the dinosaurs. I existed before the gods ever roamed the earth and created you humans. I do not know what exactly created the gods, but I do know I did somehow. Life was an accident in the universe, created by me. I suppose I was lonely. Ah, an ultimate being so lonely. It's so adorable, Issei said, teasing. With a small huff of breath, the dragon blew Issei away a few yards onto his butt. Issei then came back and sat down in his normal spot. He then began to look around, and all he saw was darkness, yet he could see himself and Erebus. Where are we? We are in your subconscious, but to be more specific, your subconscious is connected with my domain. The void. I exist in nothingness, and I am the great dragon of destruction. If I do desired, life would be eradicated, and the gods would have no chance at stopping me, but I really don't care if you live or die. I suppose you humans are amusing. How are we talking together? Why are you here with me? Your mind is connected to my domain. That is why we can talk and see. Why am I here with you? Well, I guess I choose to be with you because I am bored. I have really nothing to do, so why not entertain myself through you? So I'm just a toy. Precisely. Geez, thanks. Don't worry. I have no intention of harming you. In fact, I am helping you. You are? Yes. You have been asleep for over 24 hours. What? I have been. I gotta go to school. I need to wake up, Issei said, interrupting Erebus. Calm down, Issei. You will live if you miss a few days of school. Gah. But the make-up work. You will survive. Anyways, you have been asleep for 24 hours since you arrived home. Time in here goes quickly compared to the outside world. While we have been talking for about an hour, it's been a day there. I am granting you my powers. Why? Amusement. I really don't have a need to have my powers anyway. I exist in nothingness. I am untouchable. So what is going on in the real world? Your body is being painfully restructured to house my power. I gave you a smidgen of my powers a long time ago, but now I am giving you full access to my primordial powers. Does this have anything to do with the black spider web marks on my body? Somewhat. What are they exactly? I do not know actually. I just know that they started to arrive recently near when I gave you my small power. I see. Is it fatal? No, my power is not fatal for the user. So you kept me asleep so I do not have to feel the pain. That is half correct. It was only out of generosity that I would keep you out of pain, and I suppose I am not an evil dragon, but pain does amuse me. However, the reason I have kept you asleep is because we needed to talk. You needed someone to talk to, and I needed to talk to you about me. Well, I appreciate everything. I really do. So, what is this power? Before the light ever existed, there was only darkness. My power is the primordial darkness. It existed before the dawn of creation, making it the most powerful essence in the universe. The only place now that holds this essence is the void. You have been granted the power of the void. The power of the shadows and the darkness. So, you are giving me the most powerful power out of amusement? Yes. I want to see your life through your eyes, and I thought that this power would be very helpful considering you are now part of the supernatural. Devils. Demons. Gods. Werewolves. Vampires. All of those fairy tales exist, but they are not part of the human world. There is another world above and below, and while there is the God most Christians think about, there are more than one God. There are the Greek gods, Roman gods, Hindu gods, and all the other gods that the world worships. I have created them all, and in turn, they have created humans and animals. I also created dragons. I gave birth to several powerful dragons, and in turn they give birth to other dragons. However, I have not created life in millions of years. I have sat here, bored, unable to quench my boredom. I have found my new toy though, and now I may actually smile again. Wow. This is a lot of information. It is, but you can handle it. Your body shall be ready in a few hours, or minutes to us. I thank you. You are really the only one I can talk to. I know. I have watched over you since you were born. I will say you were quite a cute baby. Issei rubbed his head in embarrassment. Oh, you saw that too, huh? Have I amused you since I was born, even without being part of the supernatural world? Indeed. I enjoyed watching you play with other kids. I enjoyed seeing you have fun. Your feelings are connected to me, so I feel what you feel. When you were bullied by everyone, I felt anger and sadness just like you. But when you started to paint, I was enjoying myself, watching through your eyes. Before you say anything, I would always walk away when you went to the bathroom. Oh good. This would be awkward if you saw me pee or any of my manly things. I have respect for other living creatures, despite my power over them. I really do detest those bullies out there in that world. They do not deserve to live, in my opinion, but I also do not have a problem with wiping out humans or gods or devils. Hey. So, your body is ready. I will send you back if you are ready. Not yet. Can I ask you some questions about being a devil? I can try to answer. I did create your kind. What kind of things are different about being a devil than being a human? Well, you have wings, though those bat wings are not the only wings you can have. You can have dragon wings like my own. You are also more in tune with the night. You will see better at night, and you will actually feel much more energetic and stronger in night. While you can still operate just fine in the daytime, you will feel a difference. You will see farther, hear farther, and you can fly if you are strong enough. Is that all? Yes. Thank you very much. With a nod from Erebus, Issei woke up on his bed, bolting straight up. He got out of bed and made his way to the bathroom. The need to pee was great. He stopped in front of the mirror though and looked in. His eyes went wide at the change in his body. He was no longer the skinny kid he was just a few days ago. He was ripped. He had a nice six-pack and a great muscle structure on his arms and legs. He looked like he worked out a lot, yet he did not look like those ugly bodybuilders. He flexed his body and smiled. Damn, I look great. Issei then began to hum, preparing for the night. Read. Review. Celebi. You are going to move for me whether you like it or not. First, previous ch6 of 39. Next, chapter 7. Here is the next chapter. I put out 2 today because I had nothing else to do today. I couldn't play video games because the internet was so slow. XD, so I hope you enjoy this chapter. This chapter is really good, I think. Shrug. Oh, before I forgot. Let me tell you guys something. I don't have a beta and I rarely look at my work after I finish. Cheeky smiley face. I am too lazy to go reread my work and fix it. So if there is a major mistake, let me know and I will fix it, but a few grammar mistakes or spelling mistakes doesn't bother me too much. So please, enjoy. Issei now walked along the main road in the town. He was heading into the shopping district, wanting to get something to eat at one of the late-night fast food restaurants. He was starving when he woke up. He had the immense urge to release his bladder and to eat. He also drank quite a bit of liquids and was still thirsty. He decided he was going to go to a burger joint, order some grub and some lemonade. He hadn't had lemonade in months. Issei was dressed in a black pair of cargo shorts and a black pair of wife beaters. He was showing off his new incredibly awesome body, and he loved the cool night air. It wasn't cold, nor was it hot, but it was cool. It was just right. He entered the joint and ordered up about 4 bacon cheeseburgers, a large fry and some lemonade. The girl at the cashier could not take her eyes off of Issei's body, and Issei was oblivious to it. Even if he wanted to show it off, he was still completely oblivious to anything dealing with women. It was the same with Rias too. He completely ignored the fact he was naked and pointing his hard dong at her, just to berate her. He completely ignored it. It was one of the things about Issei that made him unique. Issei sat down at the table within the very empty restaurant. He was the only one there at 2 in the morning besides 2 workers. He began to chow down on the very greasy yet tasty meat, devouring the delicious meal. He then finished up his fries, then chugged down his lemonade. He then waved goodbye to the cashier lady while throwing away the cup which had her number on it, which made her pout. Issei left the restaurant and then began to walk around the town, enjoying the cool air. He wasn't going to need sleep for a few days, considering he was out for 4. He was going to go to school today as well, and it was on a Friday too, so it wasn't going to be so bad. Issei was so excited about his new body, he completely forgot everything about the school, including the fact Rias and her group was there, and that he strayed from them. It was now 7 in the morning when Issei arrived at the school. School started at 8, so he arrived early. He had nothing else to do except wait around the town, so he figured he would go to school and paint something. He entered the school grounds and walked up the stairs. He then noticed the fact he was being stared at by the students who were there. He felt better than he did before. This new body of his gave him a much-needed uplifting to his attitude. What he didn't know was this. All he did was suppress his anger, his hate, his despair, all into a dark corner of his mind, just for some time to smile. He sat down in his classroom and pulled out a small canvas. It was technically a cardboard box, but canvas is canvas. He then took out some paint and began to paint the box, painting Erebus on the box, using each of the sides besides the top and bottom to paint the black dragon of doom. He was painting very quickly, yet he was painting the dragon very well. The dragon was actually different up close than he was flying high in the sky. Erebus was more of a skeletal dragon, or at least by looking at him. His wings were shaped more like a bat's wings, with several large spikes jutting out of the bottom and one large spike at the tip. The large spike at the tip was curved slightly like a claw and had a secondary spike next to it. It looked very sinister. His back was covered in large spines and it went all the way from the back of his head down to the tip of his tail, which was very sharp looking. The most distinct feature was the fact that he had something in his body that glowed purple. His eyes were a bright purple like the energy that flowed from the inner body. This purple light showed in some parts of his wings, and from his mouth, his throat and the top part of his chest. You could see the energy actually flowing out of his mouth, and just how the light worked, you would think his neck was skeletal with no meat, but the light was so bright, it just made the meat of the bottom of the neck intangible. His legs, however, were more like a skeletal dragon. The legs were split in two like bone, but the claws on his feet were nasty looking. He looked like a very evil dragon, yet looks are deceiving, aren't they? The top of the box was used for a night sky with a very sinister moon. The bottom was left alone though. If you undid the top flaps of the box, the moon would actually be right above the dragon's frontal body, making the box work very well done. The bell rung and everyone began to enter class. Kiba also entered and he did look right at Issei, showed a bit of shock, but his look quickly dissipated. Issei was too busy placing the artwork near the teacher's desk, keeping it safe from anyone who would try to destroy it. The class started and it went along well. Issei was doing his schoolwork just fine and was actually working on his makeup work. However, now he was looking out the window, thinking to himself. He was thinking about this new power and how it worked. He hasn't felt any different, so it was strange. However, when he focused, he saw someone out the window and Issei growled a bit. Issei began to clench his fists as the rage began to take over his body. The marking on his face was now up towards the middle of his cheek. Issei. What is the matter? The teacher asked. Everyone was staring at Issei was who growling and clenching his fists. They also noticed the strange marking on his face pulsate. All the girls began to scream and back away. Ew. He has some kind of disease. Get away. Run. All the girls and most of the guys began to run out of the class, thinking Issei was sick. Issei? Are you okay? The teacher said, running over to Issei. She knelt and felt his forehead. It was very hot. Stay right here. I am going to call the nurse. Issei was fuming. His body was reacting to the rage which was heating up due to the person who stood outside, and was smiling at him. It was Yuma. Or the transformed Yuma. She was smiling and looking directly at Issei, as if to taunt him. Kiba stood up and left the room, wanting to find Rias. The school was now up in a panic due to the rumor spreading about a major disease which was highly infection. The school began to become chaotic, which in turn released its students in hope to quell this. It was an early day now. While the students let out, Issei lost sight of Yuma, who disappeared in the sea of the frenzied students. Issei made his way out of his seat, only to stop at the door. There was a note on the door. So you are still alive, huh, little boy? How disappointing. Well, I suppose I should tell you this. I have information about your parents' deaths. Wouldn't you like to know who actually caused their deaths? Well, if you would like, I would love to tell you. Come by the church tonight. I will give you a welcome party and I shall tell you all you would want to know. Laters. P.S. You look really good now. I like. Yuma. Issei roared in fury and tore up the letter, heading down the empty hallway. He then walked outside, his fists clenched as he passed by the ORC. Back in the clubhouse, Kiba met with the rest of the club. So why is everyone out of school? Rias asked. It was because of Issei, Kiba said. So he's causing problems. Not intentionally. This problem was because of the markings on Issei's body. People are saying he has a contagious disease. Preposterous. I agree, but that is what is going on. We all noticed it because it pulsated and it looked like Issei was in fury. I think he saw something outside. This is some interesting information. I wonder what is going on. I do not know, but I think something big is about to happen here soon and Issei is in the middle of it. It was now nighttime. About 10 p.m. Issei walked up the large steps into the church, feeling a bit of a chill. He then headed down the stairway underneath the altar which was left open for him, only to hear the altar move from above him. He was being trapped, but Issei knew this was a trap. Heading down into the large hallway, he saw Yuma sitting on top of a throne, smiling down at him. From the sides, leaning against the walls, were several robed figures, all smiling down at him. Welcome, Issei. It is great to meet you. Screw you. You killed me. Oh, I know, but yet here you are. One of the devils I see now. Not that I had a choice in the matter. I suppose not, but still, all my work was for nothing. What happened to my parents? She killed him, said a voice from behind. It was Rias and her servants, all there looking at everyone. She killed your parents, Issei, just to please her leaders. All these fallen angels are pathetic like that. Issei turned and growled at her, then turned to Yuma and growled back. Don't act so superior here, Gremory. You were the one who stood idle as I killed him and Donasek here attacked him to begin with. You also stood idle throughout his tormented high school years, and if I remember correctly, you did so during several of his middle school years. You are not better than me. Issei fell to his knees as tears began to fall. A powerful surge of energy bursted from Issei. The energy was dark and malicious. This energy completely disintegrated 10 of the robed figures. As the dark light was now completely gone, everyone watched in horror, shock and amazement at the power emanating from Issei. His eyes were black like death, and his face was contorted into rage. What is this power? Yuma asked in panic. She was afraid now of the power that surged from Issei. You awoken him, yet this is more power than he originally had. What is this? What is this power? It's terrifying. Is this balance breaker? Ah! He yelled once more as several black tentacles erupted from his mouth, waving around in the air in his scream. His entire body was then covered in a black shadow, making him look like a living three-dimensional shadow. His lower jaw then split in two down the middle, opening up and roaring as the tentacles from earlier disappeared. However, there was one tentacle in the mid-aisle, which had a mouth with several shadowy teeth. The jaw itself also had several large teeth, giving him the look of a predator. The floor then turned shadowy black. Issei was now a monster. His entire body was a shadowy black. His fingers were tipped in razor-sharp tips and his feet were shaped like a dragon's, with 4 digits in the front and 1 in the back. Each of these digits were razor-sharp talons, covered in a black essence. His face was no longer recognizable as it just looked like a black faceless mask. The robed exorcists began to flee, but several black tentacles protruded from the floor. There were at least 100 tentacles which tied down everyone except Yuma, who was standing up in fear. Even the Gremories were tied down by the tentacles. However, several more tentacles arose and then stabbed into the robed exorcists. A green light began to flow from their bodies down the tentacles and into the floor, and they began to scream as they tried to escape. However, several seconds later they were silenced as their life left their bodies. Once they were dead, the tentacles that tied them up and sucked their blood went back into the floor. Issei was done screaming and he looked up at Yuma. He was quiet as he made his way up the stairs, walking closer to Yuma. Stay away from me. Stay away. Yuma screamed as she began to back up slowly under the intimidating advance of Issei. She then began to fire several spears of light at him which penetrated his shadowy body, but was swallowed up by the darkness. No. Stay away. Issei got a hold of her now and shoved her against the throne. Issei. Let her go. Rias screamed at him. Issei ignored her and his lower jaw opened up, revealing his razor-sharp teeth. He then latched onto the fact of Yuma with his jaw, the teeth penetrating the back of her head, keeping her still. She began to scream in pain as then the tentacle in the middle of his mouth latched onto her neck. The green light began to flow from her as Issei kept her pinned against the throne as he drained her. She was quieted about a minute later, so Issei let her fall to the floor. He then held his head as he looked up into the sky and roared in fury. He then turned to see the Gremory group using their powers to escape. However, the only one that was doing any damage was Akano with her lightning. He began to scream in pain from the power of the light, his hands holding onto his head. The black tentacles then let them go. The black floor was then swallowed up by Issei, and then the shadow around Issei was swallowed up. Issei then looked at Rias with rage and hatred. Issei then disappeared into the shadows in the corner of the room, completely leaving the area. I will return for you, Rias. But you shall know true pain when I return. Darkness shall fall across the land. With this cryptic message, Issei was no longer in the room. He was gone from the church and he was elsewhere. Rias ran to the corner of the room where Issei was, and all she saw were the 8 pawn pieces laying on the ground. Issei removed them from his body. Coming up to Rias, Akano and Kiba stood at her sides. Rias. We have to talk to Sirzex. This is a problem, Akano said. I know. We really screwed up. Rias said. Yes, we did, but now is not the time to berate yourself. We need to fix this now, so let us work with your brother, Kiba said. Rias nodded. Yes. She prepared a portal. Within the void, Erebus watched from his lazy position of laying down. He watched Issei and his transformation, curious about everything. So it seems his mind is not strong enough to handle the power yet. Very interesting, but I have no doubt he will be able to control the power of the void in time, but for now. Let's see what's next. Let's see what Issei will do. Erebus said with amusement in his tone. Read. Review. Quack. First, previous ch7 of 39 next. Chapter 8. Here is the next chapter. Enjoy. I own nothing. Within the void, Erebus laid there, watching Issei travel around the world through the shadows. He was very much interested in his journeys. He went from place to place, as if searching for something. What are you doing, Issei? What have you got planned in that mind of yours? Erebus said to himself though out loud. He then looked into Issei's mind, curious with what is going on. Ever since Issei found out that Rias and her club basically let him die, he has changed his entire personality pretty much. Oh, this is why you were acting this way, he said with amusement. Oh, and that is your plan. Well, I think it's time I pay a visit to Earth. This will be my first journey ever to the planet. I really am excited for what is coming. Issei, you really were worth the time, Erebus said with a chuckle. He then flew into the black sky, disappearing into thin air. Back on Earth, Issei was pinning an angel against a wall. He was currently in Rome, Italy, and he found this angel walking around. Get off of me. Who are you? All of you decided to leave me to die as well. You are not worthy of being a heavenly being, Issei said with a dark tone. His eyes were completely black now as his face turned into a shadow. He then opened up his lower jaw and latched onto the angel. The angel began to scream loudly in pain as a stream of green light began to flow from his body, down Issei's body and into the floor. Once the green light stopped and the angel stopped screaming, Issei let him collapse to the floor, releasing him. I shall get back at you for your crimes, Rias. All of you shall pay for what you did to me. Issei yelled into the sky. A malicious roar filled the town of Rome. Issei's face then turned back to normal as he disappeared into a nearby shadow, traveling once again. In the underworld, Rias was sitting down at a table with her group, with another man who had long crimson hair. So, what do you wish to talk about, Rias? I think we have a problem. Ah yes, the disturbance in the church. This has something to do with your new servant, right? He actually forcefully removed the evil pieces from his body. He is no longer my servant and I can no longer track him. So he's a stray now. Why is this a problem? He has become stronger than even you. I have felt his power and it's malicious. It's full of hate and rage and he has targeted me among with the rest of the devils and the fallen angels. I think he may also target the angels too. If he targets all of us, he will surely perish. You aren't listening. He is not some weak devil. He is 10 times more powerful than you. I have felt his power. He is not a joke. We must take action. What would you have me do? I will not cause panic for our people. There won't be anyone left. Rias. Do not yell at me. Everything will be fine. Fine. Do not blame me if he comes knocking at your front door and you aren't prepared. I am fully prepared for his arrival. I know of his power, Rias. I felt it as well. I have already taken the necessary precautions. If you say so, brother, it will be all okay. So, what do you think we should do about him? I honestly am not sure. Killing him may be the best course of action, but I was the one who created him. I know. He has led a really rough life. Issei said with a bitter smile. He then turned his head as he felt something. I have to go, Rias. Duty calls. Alright. I will keep my group here if that is okay. That is perfectly fine. See you soon, Issei said, disappearing into a red circle. Issei was now in Paris, France, grinning at the girl he had pinned in a corner. It was Middle who was with Rainier the night before. Issei smiled and came from the darkness. Well, so all of you did run from Japan after what you did to me. That just makes it so much more enjoyable, Issei said, grinning as his face turned into shadow. And no. Please, I'm sorry. I was just following orders. Please just let me go. Issei knelt in front of Middle and his face went back to normal. Issei then gave her a gentle smile. Thank you. Thank you, Simu. Middle was interrupted as a tentacle of shadow was shoved down her throat. He was now struggling, trying to pull the tentacle which was taking some green light from her body. The light finally died down, disappearing completely. 1 down. 2 to go, Issei said, disappearing into some shadow, leaving Middle behind. Traveling through the shadow network, Issei found himself now in Russia, high up in the mountains of the motherland. Coming from the dark confines of the cave, Issei found himself face to face with the other female that was with Rainier, Calwarner. He smiled at her and licked his lips at her as she began to back away further into the cave. And no. Stay back. Stay back. You already got revenge on Rainier. What do you want me for? Simple. Issei said, his head turning into shadow once more. I want you. Issei then lunged forward, pinning her against the cave wall, his mouth latching onto her as his tentacle mouth latched onto the roof of her mouth. She began to scream, trying to get Issei off, but it was futile. More green light was drained. He then released her body to the ground, disappearing once more into the darkness, leaving behind the body of Rainier to decay without hope of ever being found. Back in the underworld, Issei came out of his red circle, coming face to face with a giant black dragon. This dragon was bigger than any dragon he has ever seen or heard of, and it looked malicious. Who are you and what are you doing here? Ah. The brother of the Gremory girl, I take it. Heh. This will be very interesting to watch. What are you talking about? Oh, I forgot my manners. I am Erebus, little devil. Have you heard of me? No. Ah. Well, I suppose that is to be expected. Well, if you must know, I am the first. I am the beginning. I don't understand. I existed before the dawn of creation. I created the original God and Satan. I was the beginning. I am the void. You are joking, right? You can believe what you like, little devil. I really don't care if you believe me. I am just here to watch. Watch what? You can't tell. Well, I rather not spoil the fun, Erebus said with an actual smirk forming on his face. So you are here for the coming battle with Issei His. Ah, so you are as smart as I thought. What do you have to do with Issei? Everything. I was the one who gave him his power. I gave him access to the power of the void. The power to the primal darkness. Though he doesn't actually currently control any of the power of the primal darkness. His mind and heart has become twisted and corrupt with hate for your sister and the other supernatural creatures that stood by and let him die. Why did you give him this power? You should have known he would do this. Simple. It was amusing. Plus he deserved a chance to fight back against you creatures. I just gave the weak power. Now you powerful creatures will have to pay for what you have done. Consider it karma. Will you help us in stopping him? That would not be amusing. I could easily strip all of his powers away, but that would be boring. You will have to fight for yourself, little devil. No, leave and prepare. Issei is coming. His disappeared into a red circle, not having any more time to talk to the dragon. Back in the human world, Issei was now in Japan, back in his hometown. He backhanded Donasek and sent him flying across the street into a wall. Damn you. How did you find us? It's simple. You creatures have shadows. I travel using the shadows and the night. The shadows are a dimension all in their own, but only a select few can travel using the dimension. I seen you through your own shadow and now I am here for you. Issei said calmly, his face turning into a shadow. Damn it. Donasek yelled at him, throwing spear after spear of light at him. Issei made no attempt to do anything except walk right through the light. The light connected with him but were swallowed by his darkness. Donasek then tried to take to the skies, but Issei sped forward and shoved him against the wall. Too slow. Issei then latched onto Donasek and began to take the green light from his body. Dropping him to the ground, Issei turned back to normal. Hey. It is time. Looking down into the shadows below him. Darkness is coming for you, His. Read. Review. You will neigh for me. First, previous ch8 of 39 next. Chapter 9. If you do not like this chapter, tough shit. This is the final chapter. I am not done with this story, but it's the end of the arc. I may say this is completed and work on a sequel, or continue writing on this story. What do you think? I own nothing. Enjoy. It is showtime, Erebus said out loud to himself. Let me see how you handle him. His and her group were currently in the castle of the Grimoires, standing around outside in the gardens. They were doing some training, hoping for all of this to blow over. However, luck was not on their side. So you run here to the underworld, hoping to escape my vengeance, His? Tisk tisk tisk, you should have known better than that. Everyone turned to the direction of the voice, turning to see that coming from the ground was Issei, who looked very demented. His eyes were bloodshot, red in fury, and his pupils were dilated. He looked like he had gone insane. Issei. Please, you do not have to do this. Oh, I know that, His, but it is what I want to do. It is revenge for all the pain I have been through thanks to you supernatural creatures. Coming from his back, the orb rocketed into the sky, disappearing before anyone could even see what happened. A small black bolt then rocketed into the sky, disappearing before anyone could see. Issei then laughed maniacally, lunging out at His. His hands grew into shadowy claws, and he grew 4 tentacles out from his back as he attacked. He quickly ducked under the first strike from Kiba, who slashed at his belly with the sword, and hit him with a brutal backhand, sending him over the wall of the castle. He quickly dodged the lightning bolt from Akeno, sliding up to her. He quickly ducked under the punch from Kaneko, sending Kaneko's fist into Akeno's gut, releasing Akeno so she flies downwards. He then leapt over Kaneko's face, ducked under the blast of destruction energy from His and grabbed her outstretched arm. He knelt downwards, then swung his left elbow back, connecting it with His stomach. He then opened his mouth and let out a quick breath of shadowy energy, sending Kaneko flying over the wall. Turning to His, Issei smiled a demented smile. This is all you have. This is pathetic, His. You are unable to take me on, a newbie devil. Tisk tisk. Well, I shall not have you worry for long about your lack of strength. Issei's face turned into shadow and his jaw opened up, revealing his teeth. His 4 tentacles kept her entire body pinned, unable to move. Just as Issei was about to lash on, he felt a powerful bolt of light strike him in the side. He then felt many bolts of light strike at him, penetrating his body that was made up of shadow. He quickly released His and began to scream in pain as the powerful bolts of light, stronger than those of the fallen angels, began to strike at him. Coming from the sky were white-winged beasts, the angels of heaven. Coming from the castle was His and Graphia, and then coming from the front gate was some fallen angels. Azazel. Gabriel. Michael. It is great to see you guys, His said with a smile. You were right, His. He is a very powerful being, but he has no chance against us. Azazel said with a smug look. Don't get so high and mighty, fallen angel, you are first. Issei said with a demented laugh. He rocketed into the sky, getting high and above the castle. The orb that was shot came down quickly and then landed in Issei's hand. The shadow bolt then collided with the orb, beginning to turn the green orb into a black orb. I have been collecting things while I waited for my chance to strike. I have slain many exorcists, fallen angels and angels. I haven't seen any devils to kill, but in due time. I have collected the essence of these creatures, drawing their power and placing it in a special orb created by my own powers. Now, with all of you here, you shall all witness as the darkness envelops this land. The orb was now black and Issei smashed it with his other hand. The black light shone from the orb and began to circle Issei's form. Witness the ultimate power of pure darkness. A strong force of wind began to encircle Issei, rendering him untouchable. Everyone stood at the ready, including Rias's team who recovered. Issei, what do we do? Rias asked over the roaring wind. We fight. I tried to reason with Erebus, but he wouldn't have it. Who is this Erebus? Michael asked. He is the reason Issei has the ability to destroy us. He gave Issei these powers, but even he admitted that Issei isn't Issei. I don't think this is actually the real Issei we are dealing with, Issei said. What do you mean? Azazel asked. Rias then spoke up. I think that what we face is the rage, misery and sorrow that Issei has built up inside. We are facing the black heart we have all created. That makes sense. Gabriel said. She was standing next to Michael's spears at the ready as they all watched Issei transform. So what do we do? I do not know. But if we must, we will have to kill him, Issei said. Then I think it's time, Azazel said. The roaring wind stopped. Issei was now fully transformed. He looked almost identical to the form he took in the church, but this time he had 50 tentacles sticking out of his body, a large pair of jet black dragon's wings, and along his chest and up the right side of his neck, there was a spider web pattern in crimson red. He opened his eyes and the black eyes with a red spider web inside looked down at the forces against him. Angels, devils and fallen angels. About 20 angels, 10 fallen angels and 2 devils plus the Gremory group, all versus Issei. Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Death and destruction shall follow my path. Misery and sorrow comes for those who want to hurt others. You all shall now feel the wrath of the King of Darkness. With a roar, Issei quickly struck. He sent all his tentacles at once, gripping Gabriel, Michael, Azazel, Rias and Issei in his grasp, quickly flinging them across the night sky. Now, with them out of the way, this shall be quite easily. Let us begin. The battle was on. Everyone engaged Issei, who began to swat down attacks and begin his own attacks with bursts of black flame and missiles of shadow. Your fate is sealed. Embrace your doom. Issei yelled out, but he was sent into the ground by a bolt of lightning. Akeno kept on firing lightning bolt after lightning bolt into Issei, who began dodging now. Ha ha ha. This is quite fun. This is a challenge. Issei's tentacles were having a mind of their own, dueling everyone else, and they were keeping everyone else at bay except Akeno and Kaneko. Issei smiled as he kept himself on the ground and began to fight with his shadowy claws. Let us play. Issei yelled out with demented fury as he lunged at Kaneko and Akeno. Crashing into the large mountain wall, Issei landed first. Then Azazel landed on top of him, then Michael, then Gabriel, and then Rias smacked into Gabriel, forcing them deeper into the large cliff mountain that overlooked the entire area. Ah, you are back, little devil, Erebus said from on top of the cliff. Everyone flew up to the top of the mountain, coming face to face with Erebus. Hello, Erebus, Issei said. This is Erebus, Azazel asked with a hint of fear in his voice. Ah, a little black angel, Erebus said with amusement. Your fear. It is very intoxicating. All of this fear. It smells divine. Erebus, Rias asked. You are the one who gave Issei this power. Ah, and you must be the she-devil who helped create Issei. Well, yes, I am the one who gave Issei this power. I gave him this power shortly after he died by Yuma or Rainier. Can you stop him? Of course I can. I can just take away all his power. Thank you. I never said I would. I just could. Will you? No, this battle here amuses me. Even now as your forces are being decimated, does this battle amuse me? What does strike me strange is the fact that even though you are losing, Issei doesn't use his tentacles in the battle against Akeno or Kaneko. It is like he wants to toy with them. Or he enjoys a fight. Rias looked at him. You need to stop him now. He will completely and utterly annihilate everyone, including the human world. With a puff of breath, everyone was knocked down on their butts. You dare think you can command me? I am Erebus, the beginning of all. I was the one who created God and Satan. I am the void. I am not going to bow down to some she-devil like you. Gabriel and Michael stepped forward. Will you please stop him? This has gone on far enough. He is going to end up bringing war to the human world of the underworld, and a lot of innocent people will perish. Michael said. Yes, we humbly beg you to stop Issei. Gabriel said, kneeling now with Michael. With a chuckle, ah, how amusing. You beg to save your skins. I think you should be taking responsibility for your actions. We did nothing. Gabriel said. Really? Did you not sit idly and let these fallen angels come and kill the boy? That is right. You sat idly by and let Issei suffer through the torment of his peers. All of you did. You all here helped create him. You should fix this mistake yourself. Especially you she-devil. Erebus said. Issei was currently watching the battle, a hand under his chin. Curious. Did you have anything to do with the fact Issei is not killing anyone over there? In the distance, Issei was busy laying the smack down upon the angels and fallen angels who kept on getting up, yet they were keep getting smacked down as well. Akeno and Kaneko were still fighting, though Akeno's clothes were pretty torn up and Kaneko's clothes were pretty much gone. She only really had on a bra and panties. Issei was just fighting and fighting, yet there was no deaths. Ah, you really are an intelligent one, little devil. I have control over his powers even now. I can easily turn up the juice and let him obliterate your entire world, and I could easily remove his powers from existence. Why are you doing that? Turning his powers down. Simple. It amuses me. This fighting here amuses me. I have been so bored stuck in the void with nothing to do. Now with Issei, I can actually enjoy myself. The void? Issei asked. Ah yes, the void is where I live. The shadows you see here have another diamond. I am sorry to interrupt, but we need to get back to Issei here, Rias interrupted. Erebus turned her attention to the eruption by Rias. You have a lack of manners, she-devil. You really nay. I do not care about manners at a time like this. Tell us what is wrong with Issei. Why is he doing this? Hey, you seem to care for the boy. Why? We did want to step in when he was being tormented. Me and Akeno did a bunch, but we stayed our hand because, well, You don't have a good excuse, do you? No, I do not. I regret everything that we didn't do for Issei. I do. Akeno does as well. All of us at the ORC regret it. We know what we did was wrong, but we thought it would have been best just to let him handle it on his own. She-devil. You asked what was wrong with Issei, yes? I did. Then allow me to tell you, or better yet, show you. Opening up a rip in the dimension, a portal to the void was opened. What appeared was two Isseis. One was demented and attacking. The other was an Issei who was alone. Cold. And afraid. He still had anger on his face, but he shivered. This is the mind of Issei. Issei is not well. His true self has been subdued by the rage of what has happened to him. He has kept everything bottled up inside until the night at the church. He exploded into a fit of fury, and his anger took over. What allowed this to happen was my powers. If it wasn't for the shadow powers I gave him, the corruption would have not been there. He would not be a demented fighter. You need to bring out the other Issei, Rias. Only you can do it. Me? Yes, you. You were the main person who allowed his true torment to continue. I honestly think he isn't upset with his death as much as you think. I think he is upset that he was allowed to suffer. What will happen? If you can successfully bring out the mind of the real Issei, I will help you out as well. However, he then glanced over to the leaders of the three factions. He will not die. If he dies from you guys due to this incident, you will deal with me. Michael chuckled. I have no interest in killing the boy. It is apparent that this wasn't as much a threat as we were told. Yay. Though I suppose it is thanks to Erebus that it wasn't a threat. However, I do find it interesting that there is a creature like Erebus out there. I also find it interesting how powerful Issei really is. Erebus chuckled. If you wish to know the truth, I have wanted you guys to see the error of your ways and pay for what you have done. I think Rias has understood what is right and what is wrong. If we can subdue him, what do we do after this? Issei looked out at the battle still. I suppose it is up to himself, Erebus and you, Rias. Erebus looked over them at the battle. I think he could be allowed back into the ORC as you guys call it. Rias looked out at the battle. So you want me to take care of him, I take it? Indeed. I think that the devils can make a new home for Issei, and he can be happy again. I think so too, Issei said. However, all I will do is help you subdue him and reset his powers. He will no longer be able to go into this super form. He will not have much control of his powers anyway. He would have to relearn how to use them. I will also erase all memories of him learning how to use his powers. He will not remember this night either, nor him gathering souls. He will still know that Rias allowed his torment to happen, and I will implant a fake memory of him in the church. Oh, and he will remember tonight when you apologize or whatever. Sounds good. Shall we begin? Go ahead, Erebus said. He flew off of the mountain and flew straight into the battle, though he flew high above in circles, awaiting. Rias landed nearby and looked at Issei. Issei. Rias called out to him. All of the leaders of the factions stood on standby, watching. Ah, you are back, Issei said, licking his lips. Ready for some fun? Issei. Please stop this. I am sorry that I allowed you to suffer. I am so sorry that we never helped you like we should. Issei held onto his head, struggling now. No, Issei said, coming back to the demented side. I refuse to listen to this. Issei. I mean it. I am begging you, please forgive me for what I did. I know what I did was wrong and I want to make amends for it. So please, stop this. Issei held onto his head again but then looked up at her with his regular brown eyes. You made me suffer so much. Do you know what it was like for me? I do not, Issei, and I will say I am glad not to, but you have a new life to start with. Do you really want to throw it all away? Do you think your parents would want their son to be this way? With the last sentence, Issei's eyes went wide and he began to tear up, only to pass out. The shadow surrounding his body was sucked in by Erebus's mouth, and then spat back down at Issei a few seconds later, engulfing him in a black light. It then disappeared. Issei was no longer a rampaging beast. He was now just a devil with a past of pain. Go ahead, Rias, Issei said. Rias nodded and knelt down. She placed the 8 pawn pieces within Issei and claimed him as her servant, once again. It is finally over, Rias said. I have a lot to make up for. Everyone looked up at Erebus, who was flying in a circle. Erebus then disappeared into the void. Michael, Gabriel and Azazel said goodbye to Issei, Rias and the ORC, taking their forces with them back to their parts of the underworld, heaven. Issei left Rias in the ORC with a sleeping Issei, allowing her to take care of the boy. Kaneko picked up Issei and held him like a bride while Akeno and Rias stood there near him. He is quite cute when he is sleeping, Akeno said. Yes, he is, Rias said. I want to apologize to him myself, Akeno said. We have all the time in the world to do this, Akeno. Let us give him a new life. Yes. Akeno then turned and prepared a portal. Then all stepped onto the circle, and left the underworld, returning to the human world with Issei. Read. Review. Mu. First, previous ch9 of 39 next. Chapter 10. Here is the next chapter. I may or may not write another chapter tonight. Cheeky smiley face, I think I probably will, but who knows. So this chapter is shorter than usual, but I think it kind of assists in bringing in the new arc. I hope you enjoy it. Issei began to groan within the void. He awoke finally and sat up, only to come face to face with Erebus again. So you were awake, boy. Yay. What happened? Think. Everything will come back to you, at least most of it. Issei closed his eyes and he began to have flashes of what happened. He saw himself fighting Akeno and Kaneko, and a ton of other beings. He saw the monster he became. A shadowy creature with a lot of shadowy tentacles, all with a mind of their own, keeping the others at bay as he fought with Akeno and Kaneko. He then heard and saw Rias apologizing to him. It was blank after that. Yes, Issei. She apologized to you. You felt that she was sincere with her apologies, that you returned with your sanity. The leaders of the 3 factions and I all worked together to save you from the dark hole you were descending down. Your anger and hate, despair and misery, combined with the immense power of the shadows, creating that monster. While it was entertaining, I decided you did not deserve to go down that path, so I helped you, or should I say, I helped them help you. Why did you do this for me? Simple. You have amused me for a while now. You have kept me entertained, so I did you a favor. Plus, I suppose I felt bad for you. Do not expect me to do those kind of things again, Erebus said with a puff of his breath, knocking Issei to the ground. Hey, I will keep it in mind. So, What now? Well, do you wish for me to tell you? Or do you wish to find out on your own? I guess I'll find out on my own. As the best choice. Just keep this in mind. The path you were going only led to destruction. While destruction is fun, complete decimation would only make things boring as you will have nothing to play with anymore. You were going to be unable to live your life, and now you have been given a third chance. A third? Hey, you are a devil, remember? Devils live for millions of years as do angels and fallen angels. A human lives for what? 100. Less than that for most. You have been given a chance to live a life you couldn't have as a human. You are entering the world of the devils, and I have been watching them from time to time. The devils are by far the most entertaining species. You enjoy fighting, yes? Not even waiting for a response, Erebus continued. The devils love their fighting. There is fighting all the time. It's a constant battle, even between the factions there is fighting. I am honestly jealous of you. You are. Quite. As I am all-powerful, I can in fact go and have fun directly with you creatures, but that is not what I really want. This power. It really is a curse sometimes. As you do have my powers, the limit to the powers I gave you is quite limited. However, you are still able to be very powerful. You could be the strongest being in existence, except of course me. Ha 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 ha. So Issei, are you going to live your new life? Yes. I will. Good. Now, I want you to promise me something. What is it? When you return, try to forgive. Do not forgive immediately, but forgive in time. Try to live your life. Without even waiting for a response, Issei was awakened in the real world, by Erebus forcing him out. Issei opened his eyes and found himself in a familiar settings. He found himself in the office of the ORC where Issei was told what he was, what they were, and where he was told he was a servant. He looked around and noticed he was alone and it was midnight according to the clocks. He sat up and put his head in his hands down, rubbing his eyes. I see, Erebus. This is what you have meant by forgiving. So I am back with them, am I? Hey. I suppose I am not as angry as I once was. I feel renewed. Free from the constriction of my rage. Is it because I let it out that night? He then heard a voice, Erebus. Yes. When you fought them that night, you released an immense amount of your negative emotions. If you had kept it in any longer, you would have never returned to us. You would have become a shell of your former self and walked the path of absolute annihilation. How can I hear you? Issei said out loud. Oh good, so this does work. Look in front of you, Issei, on the floor. Issei looked on the floor in front of him and what he saw was freaky. Erebus's head was looking right at him, but it was 2D. You are my shadow. Indeed. I have decided that this would be a great way to enjoy myself as well. I can manifest myself into a physical form as well in time, turning into an actual warrior for you. It's living shadow. Huh. I think that would actually be fun to have you around like that. As do I. Well, it is time that I take my nap. Dealing with you the past week has been tiring. Good night. Erebus said, disappearing from the shadow, no longer actually making a shadow onto the floor. Issei stood up and walked towards the large bay window, looking out into the sky and the schoolyard. The full moon was out and it was shining bright. The moonlight was basking him in its glow and it made him feel alive. It made him feel as if he had a new chance at life. I have not forgiven anyone for what they did. But now, I feel like I can. I feel like I can move on. If the devils can make me happy, I will embrace it. I do not want to feel this anger or sadness anymore. I just want to be happy. Thank you. Erebus. Read. Review. SHAZOOOOO. First, previous CH10 of 39 next. Chapter 11. Some guy mentioned soap. Google Chrome soap. Anyone have a clue what he meant? Where am I getting close to the original that most people aren't already getting close to? Anyway, here is the next chapter. I have decided that I am going to show you another form of shadowy powers that I am going to give Issei. Winking face. It might just be my favorite form. I do not think I'll show you the powers this time. I may give hints this chapter or the next chapter, but the new powers won't surface for a few more chapters. So this chapter is pretty short, but honestly nothing really big is happening like the pain and suffering of Issei. I suppose you can consider these filler chapters before the big stuff begins, but the new arc has begun last chapter. This chapter won't focus on pain and suffering, but instead of happiness, perversion and fun. I hope you don't get too upset, but I did promise lemons and perversion winking face, Oh, and I promised something very early on in this story. I think it's almost time too. I may or may not write a third chapter tonight. Don't hold your breath. It was about 3 in the morning at the clubhouse, and Issei was still wide awake. He wouldn't need sleep until at least 3 in the afternoon. He was not tired, so he would not sleep until he was needed to. Issei was sitting outside the clubhouse, sitting on the roof and watching the sky. He wasn't really thinking about much, just sitting there watching the moon. He was thinking about how different he felt. He felt weaker, and he wondered why. He never got to ask Erebus, but he felt like he had no powers whatsoever at the moment. It's because you have no powers. Erebus spoke up, his shadow face next to Issei. Oh, did you sleep well? Issei asked. I didn't sleep that much. I need to take a vacation one of these days from you and well sleep. Ah, I'm sorry. Nah, don't blame yourself. If anything, it's my fault. I am busy trying to get you back on track so you can entertain me more. You are so sweet, Issei said, mocking him. With a slight growl, Erebus continued to talk. I took away your powers that night and then gave them back. Basically, you have no control over your powers, so you cannot use them. You have to work to use them, though you won't have any trouble with that. I know you. I see. Oh, and you may also change the way your powers work. You don't have to have powers like the ones you used before. You could make your shadows into anything you desire. That is the greatness of shadows, and the fact you now have the powers over the primal darkness means that they are extremely powerful. That is something to think about. I have unlimited possibilities, right? Of course. You could even just breath Deathly Shadow, which would kill on contact. That wouldn't be very fun though. Agreed. I would definitely take away your powers if you did that. They shared a slight laugh together. I think I've found my new powers. Care to share? How about we save it as a surprise? Is it entertaining? I would like to think so. Suffering is fun, right? At least when it's done in a war. Not like my mental suffering. You know what I am saying? Like someone melting slowly from being lit on fire. Yay, that is entertaining. I am not a fan of the mind games. It's honestly boring and just cruel. I agree. Physical damage can be repaired, for the most part. Devils can repair pretty much most physical damage, though there are a few exceptions. Hey. Well, my powers really won't destroy a limb. I can't wait to find out what you have in store for me. I am very interested in what you got. Erebus? Yes. Do you think you could give me some one-on-one training? Depends. I want to learn how to control fire. Fire? Erebus asked with a surprised tone. What makes you want that? Well, I like fire. It's destructive, it's warm, comforting, and well, it's what dragons use. Not all dragons. Some dragons will use ice and others will use lightning, but most dragons use fire. I suppose that would be fine in teaching you how to use fire, but I think I'll take a small vacation here, alright? I really need to sleep. If you really need me, you know how to reach me. That sounds like a plan. Get some good rest, Erebus. Erebus said, disappearing from the physical realm in the mind of Issei. Ah, the sunrise. Issei said with a smile as he watched the sun rise from behind the mountains. Beautiful rays of red and orange lit up the sky, covering the entire sky with an entrancing view. Very beautiful. Indeed it is, said someone from behind Issei. Issei looked behind him and saw Rias walking over to him on the roof. Ah. Issei said, not exactly sure what to say to her. Issei. I'm sorry. So am I. I have had time to reflect on what I've done. You shouldn't be the one apologizing. You may have caused the world a lot of chaos, but if it wasn't for the world, you wouldn't have done it. We made you and it was our faults. I am just glad I had the chance to apologize. I want the chance to make up for it. Issei smiled. I think that's a wonderful plan. So how are you feeling? Rias asked, sitting down next to Issei with their legs off the side of the roof, watching the sunrise. I am feeling great actually. I may have not forgiven you guys for what you have done, but I have decided that living my life is important. If you and your group can help me with this, I think I can easily forgive you guys. I was never the one to hold a grudge like that. I did hold a grudge against you, of course, the past week, but I was just so angry. I know everything. We were told by Erebus that you had pent-up anger and hatred. Yes. If you got to know the real me, you will see I do not hold grudges. I am glad. I hope we can have fun. As do I. Issei and Rias finally stopped talking, just sitting there watching the skies. It was only a Saturday, so they had the entire day without school. Read. Review. I be so kawaii. I mean, moo. First, previous ch 11 of 39. Next, chapter 12. Here is the next chapter. Enjoy. So I have a couple things that are on my mind. This SOPA act slightly worries me because I know how stupid the government is, but at the same time, why should I be worried? Even if it passes, fanfiction should be fine. We aren't getting paid for our work, right? We aren't actually taking any money away from the owners of the things we write or read. If anything, we only want to buy their stuff more because of more inspiration. Just some of my thoughts. So, this chapter contains a small hint to Issei's new powers. I will not reveal it until I reveal it in the story. Winking face. Can you guess what his powers are? If you do, I will give you a shout out. I own nothing. It was now 10 in the morning. Issei and Rias were sitting in the clubhouse, waiting for the other members. Issei took an entire couch to himself, playing with a small ball of shadow. It was the only thing he was able to create since he had his powers taken away. He was learning quite fast and he knew this, so he was quite proud of himself. He was currently just tossing the ball of shadow up into the air, letting it bounce off the ceiling and back down to him. The door to the club opened and in walked the rest of the club. Akeno, Kaneko and Kiba. Kiba and Kaneko took a seat on the opposite couch while Akeno sat on the arm of Issei's couch, sitting right above his head. Ah, everyone is here. Good. So today. Akeno raised her hand. Yes, Akeno? Rias asked. Can I speak for a moment? Yes, of course. Rias said with a smile, knowing what she wanted to say. Akeno got off the couch and Issei turned his head back to look at her. Akeno bowed to Issei and looked at the floor. I am sorry, Issei, for what I have not done for you. It was wrong of me and I regret what I have done. It was Kiba's turn. Yes. I did not like sitting idle either and I apologize for it. It wasn't manly of me. I hope we can become good friends. Kaneko stood up and lightly bowed her head. I am sorry as well, was all she said. They all took their seats again, and Issei decided to speak up. As I told Rias earlier, I have not forgiven you, but I do not hold grudges. I am positive that in time, I can forgive you guys. I am not even upset too much anymore, so I won't be hostile. I really want to be friends with everyone. Akeno, Kiba and Rias all smiled, happy to hear him say that. Alright, now that that is out of the way, I think it's time we help Issei here with Devil Life. I think it's tea. Rias was interrupted by a red circle. It was Searsex who stepped out of it. Am I interrupting? He asked. Of course not. Why have you come? I would actually like to watch for a while. Issei rolled his eyes. I am not stupid. I know that you are here because of me. Issei said from his couch. Ah, I will keep that in mind. So, what about me do you want to know? I just want to see how you are doing really. You really need to stop thinking I am stupid. Please just cut to the chase. With a sigh, Searsex let out a smile. All right. I have taken some time and I have decided that I wanted to pay my sorrows to you personally. I would like to grant you one free desire. Anything you could want. You could marry Rias, have a harem, become a king and have your own servants. Anything you desire, except take my position as Lucifer. Issei sat up and then laughed. Are you seriously saying you would offer Rias as payment for letting me suffer? Yes. I think that is a worthy apology present. Rias is not a prize, nor is anyone a prize, my dear friend. Issei said casually. Rias widened her eyes at what Issei said, but said nothing afterwards. She was quite surprised at what he said. I also do not really desire a harem right now, not that it isn't something us men enjoy, and I don't know much about being a king. Plus, I rather not cheat my way into the higher rankings. How about I hold you to that offer until I need it? That is acceptable. I will remember it. I am glad. I am not saying I would hate to marry Rias. I think she is very pretty and kind, but I have no desire for marriage, and I think marriage should be out of love. There is no other reason for a marriage. Especially a forced one. Issei said, quite casually. You are an interesting person, Issei Hyodo. I shall be watching you, Searsex said, disappearing into the circle. So, I am going to take a guess. That was either your brother or your father. Brother. That is Searsex. He is my older brother in the current Satan or Lucifer. Ah, so he is the head honcho. Well, I am very pleased to have met him. On better circumstances, Issei said, hinting that he knew. You know? Akeno asked. Know of that night? Yes. I do. It is one I regret deeply and would like to apologize to all of you. I realize I could have killed you all and I regret that. I hope you can forgive me. Everyone nodded. Anyways, as I was saying, I think it's only proper we help Issei with being a devil. I think it's time we get him a familiar. Though we will need to wait until tonight. Ah well. I need to take a small nap. Alright. Yeah sure. I will come and wake you up in a few hours. Rias said. Issei nodded and headed towards a dark corner. He closed his eyes and began to inch forward, as his body began to merge with the shadow. Issei then disappeared into the shadow, coming out at his own house. He laid down on his bed and began to take his rest, wanting to get his sleep schedule back on track. It was now 8 in the afternoon, and Issei slept for about 5 hours. This gave him enough rest to get him until all devils usually went to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Devils did not need as much sleep as a human to function. Entering Issei's room, Rias shook Issei's leg, hoping to get him awake. Issei quickly sat up and faced the ORC. Akeno. Prepare the circle. Okay. Akeno prepared a magic circle. Alrighty. Shall we go? Rias asked. Sure. I am good. Issei said. He walked into the circle with the rest of the ORC. Issei then opened his eyes and found himself within a new world. It was dark, scary and was a forest. It looked dead. Issei then walked forward ahead of everyone, searching for a familiar. He then stopped and looked back. He then walked over and rubbed the back of his head. I actually think I should get to know what a familiar is first. Oh, my apologies. Rias said. A bat then appeared on her shoulder. This is my familiar. Familiars are creatures that basically do the lower class work for us and they can actually have some combat capabilities. They can have certain powers that are a bonus too. Oh I see. Issei replied. He then looked around and noticed there were many creatures running about, but then he spotted the different familiars that everyone had. The first was Kiba's familiar, which was a large spider. This spider was as big as a dinner plate and it rested on his shoulder. That is fucking awesome. I love spiders. He then turned to Akeno's pet, looking at the imp. I wonder if they giggle. Issei said, poking the imp's belly. The imp decided to bite him instead of giggle. Ow. I thought you guys were like the doughboy on the commercials. He then turned to Kaneko who held a small cat in her arms. Ah, it's so adorable. Issei said with a smile. He took a finger and began to rub the belly of the cat, smiling. His name is Shiro. I like that name. He is so cute. He looks like you. All of their familiars then disappeared into nothingness, so with that, Issei disappeared from the group. Issei. Don't wander around. It's dangerous. Rias warned him. Issei however did not hear her as he was crashing through the forest, though he did evade the ground familiars. Issei kept on running until he found a large cave. He saw that there were many bones scattered around the mouth which was a dangerous sign. Danger only makes things more fun. Issei said, walking into the cave. He kept on walking and walking, eventually coming upon a large lake. This lake was lit up by gorgeous gems and luminescent moss. However, coming out of the water was a creature. This creature stood tall. He was at least twice the size of Issei, and he had 9 heads. It was a large black hydra, and it looked sinister. Issei bowed to it, showing respect to the creature, which was getting ready to bite. It however, did not. It stayed still, looking down at Issei. Hello. I am Issei Hyodo. I would like to be your friend and master. The hydra just looked at him and snorted, as if laughing at him. Issei stood back up and walked closer to the hydra, stood right in front of him and looked straight up into the 9 heads. The two of them began to have a staring contest, as if seeing who would back down first. Issei held out his hands, as if welcoming the coming bite, but the hydra never bit. It just looked down at Issei and snorted again. It then lowered its heads, feigning submission. Issei then stroked each of the heads, petting him. He then binded the hydra to himself with his shadow, claiming the hydra as his own. The hydra lifted Issei onto his back and began to walk out of the cave with Issei with him. Issei just stroked the long necks. You aren't so evil as people think. I just don't think people showed you respect, and I think you feed on fear. The hydra snorted, basically saying yes. Well, I don't fear anything. I think danger makes things more fun, Issei said with a smirk. The Hydra nodded, agreeing with that statement. Issei and the Hydra then came upon Rias and her group, who stood waiting around where they came from. Issei. It's about Dawo. Is that what I think it is? Rias asked in amazement. What? That is one of the most dangerous creatures in all of the familiar world. It's the second most dangerous. How did you claim him? Simple. I showed him no fear and I showed him respect. Wow. It's that simple. Well, the fear is not simple. I just don't fear anything, not even death. Danger only makes things more fun. Huh. Wow. I am quite proud of you, Issei. Thank you. I am going to call this guy Pharmaco. What does that mean? Akeno asked curiously. It is Greek for poison. Interesting name. Well, I think it is time we return. Yes, Rias said. Everyone nodded and teleported back to the clubhouse. Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko all said goodbye and left the clubhouse for their own homes. Rias and Issei both stayed behind for a while. Issei. Yes. What do you think about love? Me? Well, I think it's a great thing in this world. But I also think it's a dangerous thing. I think that you should be with the one you truly want to be with, but at the same time, you should not be with the one who you do not want to be with. Being with someone who just hates you and is using you. It hurts, and I think those people are one of the worst people in the world. Why do you ask? Oh, it's nothing. Alright, I am going to return home. Alright, Issei. Rias said, watching Issei disappear into the shadows on the floor. He actually just sank into the shadows. Rias then looked out the window as she sat at her desk, her mind deep in thought about something. Read. Review. MAKAWK. First, previous CH12 of 39 next. Chapter 13. Here's the next chapter. I skipped all the fillers of the anime and I went for the good stuff, but this is definitely not even close to the end of my story. I promise you that. This story is going to be much longer. Mwahaha. My longest story yet. Lol. I own nothing, and I am only using the movie 300 since it's a fantastic movie. I do not own it. Enjoy. A week has passed since Issei got his familiar. He has went on several jobs to help Kaneko, and each time he has not gotten a pact. This of course upsetted Rias, which Issei apologized. He just kept getting weird requests that he was just unable to fulfill. It was now another Saturday and Issei said he was going to take the day off. He wanted to go to this new movie that came out the night before. Rias said that is fine, and then called the day off for the most part. Kiba, Kaneko and Issei all went to see this new movie, which was about the Spartans fighting off the Persians. It was about King Leonidas and a brave 300 fighting off millions of soldiers at the Battle of Thermopylae. It was an action fantasy movie and it looked great. Inside the clubhouse, however, Rias and Akeno were together. You didn't want to go, Akeno. Nah. That movie didn't look that great. I much prefer those torture movies with the guy who rides the tricycle. Ah, that is kind of you, isn't it? You know, it's funny. What is? Issei. He has been on about 10 jobs and never once has he ever gotten a pact, yet. Each review said very positive things and they actually say they want him to come along more. They had a lot of fun and it was a great time. As a devil, he sucks. Yet everyone adores him. It's kind of interesting. It's really an odd case. Is that so? I fear that if Issei keeps failing he's going to lose confidence. I don't think he will. He doesn't really have an attitude like that. I think he is just trying to enjoy his life and not really worry about anything. I think he has the attitude of, I don't give a fuck. Still. I think it would be great if he actually got a pact for once. You seem awfully worried about him. Do you have feelings for him? Rias blushed and shook her head. Of course not. All right, President. I'm going to head home if that is okay. Yes, of course. Akeno left the clubhouse and Rias turned to look out the window, only to see a bright white light behind her. It was a magic circle. Graphia. Rias said. Back in the movie theaters, the movie ended finally. Everyone stood up and cheered besides Kaneko. It was a fantastic movie and worth seeing. The three then left together, heading outside. So, anyone hungry? Yeah, I can eat. What you have in mind? How about a seafood joint? Said Kaneko. I could for some fish. You. Kiba nodded and they all went on their ways to get some fish. It took a couple hours, but they finished with full stomachs. They were on their way back to the clubhouse, only to meet up with Akano on her way back to the clubhouse. She forgot something there. Oh hey Akano. Oh hi Issei. Was the movie any good? Oh, it was great. I enjoyed it very much. It was rad. Yay, I enjoyed it. Some great fighting scenes. That's good. So Issei, how do you feel about Rias? I dunno. I think she is very kind and she is drop-dead gorgeous. She is awfully strange compared to other people I have met, but in all honesty everyone here is strange as hell. It isn't a bad thing, but it's quite something to get used to for a recluse like me. They arrived at the clubhouse, and everyone felt a very dangerous chill. I have a bad feeling about this, Issei said, but he calmly walked in. But this may just turn out to be quite a lot of fun. They all arrived into the clubhouse, and Rias was sitting down on the couch with another man. This man had quite a sinister look to him, but he didn't look too evil. He had dark blue eyes, short blonde hair, and he was very handsome. Issei was cute, but this other guy was handsome. He looked quite a few years older than Rias, and he was currently playing with her hair and rubbing her leg. He wore a burgundy blazer, matching pants, black shoes, and he had a white dress shirt on that was one button short from being buttoned up, so he gave a view of his masculine chest. So everyone is here, Grafia said from the corner. Issei turned and looked at the girl he did not recognize. Rias. What is going on? Issei asked. Who is this guy and why is he getting very cuddly with you? Rias was about to speak, but Grafia did instead. This man is Riser Phoenix, heir to the Phoenix family. He is Rias's fiancé. Issei raised a brow at these new developments. So, Rias here is going to marry this guy who seems to make Rias feel uncomfortable. Yay. I think he needs to take his hands off her, Issei said, approaching Riser. Rias opened her eyes and opened her mouth in an attempt to stop Issei, but Riser got up first to look at Issei. I advise you to sit down, little boy. You are messing with someone beyond your capabilities. Perhaps, but I really don't care. I do care about this though. You are making my friend uncomfortable. It seems to me she doesn't like you. Am I right, Rias? Issei. Please sit down, Rias asked. Grafia turned her head sharply at the mention of his name, but she said nothing. Issei sighed and sat down, grumbling to himself. Riser smirked triumphantly and went back to stroking Rias, but Rias quickly got up and walked a few feet away. Stop it, Riser. Get it through your head. I have no intention of marrying you. But Rias, this marriage was put in place by your family and mine. You know as well as I do this is for the good of the devil race. My brother and father are in too great of a rush. Who I marry will be my own choice, not theirs. For the final time, I will not marry you. Riser got up and held her chin for her to look at him. Riser bears the reputation of the House of Phoenix. I will not accept anyone besmirching my good name. Issei got up in a bit of anger. Riser doesn't care if he has to burn everyone in this room to ashes. You will return to the underworld with me and we will be getting married. Riser and Rias began to glow orange and red respectively, preparing for a battle. Grafia, however, stepped forward. There is no need for decimation. As you know, I am here by order of Circex. If you continue to be selfish, I am given a last resort. A rating game. Of course he did, Rias said with a bit of anger. Ah, what an interesting development. I think this is a perfect way to settle this. Issei decided to speak up. I don't know what this rating game is, but does it allow me to kick this guy's ass? Riser turned to him and smiled. You lower-class devils are so funny. As if you could ever match me. Issei growled and glared at Riser. Rias, is this all you have as your group? Yes. It is all I need. A pity. Riser has a full team. Riser snapped and out from his circle came 14 females, a full party. Ubaluna? Yes, my lord. A girl with black hair with purple highlights stepped forward. Riser then leaned down to kiss her lips and he began to make out with her for a few moments. Issei's eyes widened and then he began to growl angrily. We need to prepare, all right? Go get our group ready for the game, all right? Riser asked of her. She nodded and her entire team disappeared. Goodbye, Rias. You will have 10 days to prepare yourself and your team. Goodbye, Riser said, disappearing into his circle. Issei was clenching his fist, already hating the guy. Not only does Riser not even love her or care about her feelings, he is making out with a girl right in front of her. He knew this was just like Rainier almost. Is 10 days acceptable, Rias? 10 days is enough. I hate to admit it, but we need the help. I will go and inform Circex. Farewell, Graphia said, disappearing. Rias turned to her group and sighed, very unhappy. This was going to be tough. Read. Review. Moo. First, previous ch 13 of 39 next. Chapter 14. Here is the next chapter. Enjoy. I think you guys will really like this chapter. It is just a taste of what is in store, winking face. Hee hee hee. Next chapter will be more serious though, and so will the chapter after that. Then we can try to get back to some fun chapters, laughing face. It was the Sunday following the declaration of the raiding game. The ORC made a trek high into the mountains for some training. They arrived at a cabin in the woods which was owned by the Gremories. Rias and Akeno were actually off training together. Kiba was practicing stances in his form, and then there was Issei and Kaneko. These two were preparing for their own training after Rias decided that he needed help with physical combat more than magic or swordsmanship. Issei was already a natural with magic and all of that, and he really didn't need the swordsmanship, but he would still train sometimes with Kiba. His training, however, was with Kaneko, who would spar over and over, getting Issei stronger and stronger. You ready? Give me your best shot. They both then ran at each other and began to fight. Kaneko came at him first with a powerful jab at his stomach. Issei rushed into the fist and took it head on, only for him to grab Kaneko from her waist. He then picked her up, getting her upside down, then he turned and slammed her down onto her back. Issei quickly dove onto her short body and began trying to get her into a submission hold. This, however, turned to be futile as Kaneko easily used her superior strength and her tiny form to quickly outmaneuver Issei's larger figure. She got behind him and got his head in between her legs and began to squeeze, cutting off his air and making him fight for it. Issei used a bit of strength and actually lifted her onto his shoulders like she was getting a ride, then he slammed her into a tree by running back into it. However, Kaneko kept her grip. Issei then felt himself getting weak, only to pass out shortly from lack of oxygen. A few hundred yards away, Rias and Akeno were doing their own training together. They were just practicing their magics against Kiba, trying to force him off his feet. They were firing blast after blast of magic, hoping to stop his footing, but it was futile. Kiba was just way too good. Back where Kaneko was, Issei groaned and began to wake up, finding himself staring up at Kaneko. You are stronger than I expected. Did you think I was a weakling? With physical combat, yes. You are more of a magic user. Well, did I impress you? Yes. Now get up. Do it again. Issei and Kaneko both stood up, eyed each other, then charged. Issei was quick to dodge the right hook from Kaneko, shoving his body into her own, picking her up and tackling her into a tree. However, when Kaneko got near the tree, she quickly kicked off of it, then forced Issei's arms off of her. When this happened, Kaneko quickly grabbed Issei's head and put him into a headlock. She began to drag him around, trying to wear him out, but Issei was not one to give in so easily. Issei kept on trying to grab at her, but she just kept wiggling her body away, keeping out of his grasp. However, Issei tried something that caught her off guard. He quickly forced himself to sit, bringing her directly into his lap. With this, Issei quickly put her into a headlock, wrapped his legs around her waist and began to suffocate her. Kaneko was now slamming her elbows into him, attempting to get him off, but Issei just grunted with each blow, wanting to win. His body was aching and bruising, but he kept his determination. However, Kaneko quickly dove her hand towards his crotch and gripped his manhood. She squeezed, knowing how to take down men, and this got Issei off quick. Issei groaned for a moment, holding onto his junk in pain until Kaneko got him into a headlock like she was and began to choke the air out of him. Issei began to do the same thing to her, slamming his elbows back, but that was pointless. She was much stronger than him in endurance anyway. Kaneko kept her grip and eventually, Issei's movements died down, another pass out. Kaneko let him go and let him rest, sitting next to him until he awoke. He didn't even try to stop me by grabbing onto me. Why? Did he not want to, or did it not just cross his mind? He could have easily gotten me off. When Issei woke up next, it was nearly sundown. Kaneko helped Issei to his feet. It's time for dinner. Ah, right. Kaneko and Issei walked silently back to the cabin, ready for the dinner that awaited them. The dinner table was set in the large den. It was a warm summer day, so there was no need for a fire, of course. They all sat down at the table and began to dig into the dinner of rice, orange chicken, peas, carrots, onions, mushrooms, and some peppers. The onions, mushrooms, and peppers were all really well cooked, so there was no taste to them, so it was just a really healthy addition to the meal. Issei was already chowing down like his life depended on it, and he ate like an animal compared to the more delicate eating styles of the others. Even Kiba ate like a gentleman. Issei was just a pig, but he was Issei. So Kaneko, how would you rate Issei today? He is weaker than me, but he has a lot of potential. He never gives up nor gives in, always fighting to the very last moment. He has gotten me several times trapped in a corner, but I was never beaten. You grabbed my junk, Issei said, clearly offended about her dirty fighting. Fight to win or you die. Issei just grumbled and went back to his plate, finishing off the food. He had the most of the food by far, but that was okay since no one ate as much as him. Ever. The meal finished in silence after that until Rias said, "Alright, it's time to take a bath." You serious? A bath? Issei said, enthusiastic. He really wanted a nice hot bath, but Rias took his enthusiasm the wrong way. You want to join us, Issei? What? I never said that. Are you saying you don't want to bathe with us? I never said that, Issei said, but his eyes widened at what he said. So you do? I never said that either. Does our bodies not appeal you? Akeno asked. She saw how flustered he was becoming, so she decided to have some fun. What? No. Of course they do. So do you want to see me naked? Akeno asked with a devious smile. Yes. No. Issei just slammed his head down on the table and pulled out a white flag, waving it around. Akeno just giggled happily, Rias just smiled, and Kaneko just stared at him quietly. So, I am fine with him coming. Akeno? Rias asked. Oh, I think it will be a lot of fun. We could also wash him, Akeno said with a giggle. She saw that Issei went red quickly, so this was a lot of her for the sadistic girl. Kaneko? I don't care. Then it's settled. Issei bathes with us. Issei just let out a groan, not really sure what to feel. On one hand, he was excited at the idea of washing a girl and getting washed by a girl. He also was excited at seeing them all naked, and all those other dirty things that can happen. On the other hand, he was trying to be a gentleman. Isn't that what girls like? He was just so confusing, and he knew that Akeno was doing it on purpose to him. He just wouldn't dare call her out on it. About 10 minutes later, Issei was dragged out of the bathhouse, taken into the water completely naked. He had no way to defend himself from Rias and Akeno, who quickly overpowered him. He had one hand on his crotch and the other hand was being taken by Akeno while Rias just walked ahead of him. Issei had his eyes tightly shut, not wanting to peek. He was a gentleman, so he would not peek. Even if he was given permission. I mean, he really loved women and their body parts, but this is just so sudden. And given permission by 3 beautiful ladies is just overloading his mind. Issei sighed in pleasure as he felt the hot water soothe his leg as he stepped into the bath. He was quickly led into the bathe, then released by Akeno. Issei sighed and began to slouch down, really loving this bath. He even uncovered his junk to put his hands behind his head. The hot water completely erased his mind, as he has not been to a hot spring in many years. The last time he was in the bath, his parents were alive, and he was actually wanted as a son. Issei was having a hard time relaxing because he began to hear some giggling from Rias and Akeno and some hushed words. He even heard these words and it made him beet red. It's so big too, Akeno said with a smile. I know, right? It really is beautiful. I wonder what it tastes like, Rias said with a devious smile, just like Akeno. I bet it tastes really good. I hope so. Looks so tasty, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Issei was blushing madly as he assumed they were talking about his junk. He quickly covered it up, not wanting to open his eyes. It is tasty, Akeno said. With that, Issei opened his eyes and watched Akeno and Rias munch on a large hot dog, both taking bites out of a single one. Issei narrowed his eyes in annoyance, uncovering his junk again. About 5 minutes passed since then and Issei felt the water move. He then heard 2 figures approaching him on either side of him. Alright, I think it's time we bathe, Issei, Rias said. Oh. I am okay. I can bathe myself. Nonsense, sweetie. It is only proper we get to bathe you. Akeno said with a hint of sadism in her tone. Rias and Akeno both sat up Issei, who was just beet red and trying not to take a look. "Aw, look, Rias. Issei here is so shy, but yet look at him. It looks like he is also excited," Akeno said, teasing the boy. "Oh Issei, you naughty boy," Rias said. It was then Issei felt trapped. Rias quickly got behind him and Akeno got in front of him. He then felt both of their massive breasts press against his naked body, and his mind fell into a state of pure bliss. Silky skin and just so firm. Issei was loving it and his little friend was also enjoying it. He then felt them both rub him up and down with their chest and hands, washing his body with their breasts and hands. Issei was just blushing, going into a manly overload. Kaneko was finished with her bath, so she just relaxed in the hot steamy water, watching the older girls and more mature girls rub up against Issei. Kaneko was really curious now about Issei, wondering how he was able to keep calm under this. He was struggling visibly, but she was just surprised he wasn't actually groping them or begging for more. Or whatever. Most guys she knew would jump on board with this, yet Issei wasn't. It was really something Kaneko was confused about. She was not at all accustomed to boys who would not stare at her like freaks, and she was not accustomed to real gentlemen. She was by no means a prude, but she would only like to do these things with the guys she likes. So for now, she just sat there watching Issei suffer. Or well, enjoy his bath. Read. Review. Moo. Nay. Quack. Die in a hole. First, previous ch 14 of 39 next. Chapter 15. Hello again for another installment of my story. Yes, this chapter is quite short, but it is only short because I do not want to reveal anything too. Special winking face. Next chapter will reveal Issei's new powers, which again deal with the darkness. It's just another form the darkness can take. Carrot carrot. I own nothing. Please. Enjoy. It was war. It was battle. It was glorious combat. This was the raiding games. Currently, Issei and the ORC were standing in their clubhouse as they prepared for the beginning of the raiding game. They were transported here a few minutes ago and Rias was going over the battle plan. Issei. You and Kaneko will need to go to the gym here. Can you handle that? Yes, of course I see. Issei was interrupted as a big black circle rose from his feet. Issei. Rias called to him in shock. What are you doing? It's not me. Issei said as he sunk into the black circle in the floor. Something else is pulling me down. Issei. Rias said, everyone reaching onto him. They gripped onto him like their lives depended and began to pull, but he just kept on sinking. He was then yanked from their grip and the hole disappeared. What the fuck just happened? Rias screamed. Rias. We are going to have to continue with him, Kiba said. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Rias said, her spirit already losing. We can still win this, Kiba said with enthusiasm. You are right. Let's do this, team. Yes, everyone said together. Issei was currently within the void, coming face to face with Erebus. Hello boy. I have awoken from my slumber. It is time for our training. You have to do it now? I was just in a raiding game with Rias. You were going to lose regardless, boy. You were still weak compared to Riser. No one would have defeated that phoenix. But you what? You think your training with the Nekomata was going to do anything against him? Sure, you could have destroyed his pawns, but that king you were going to face would have smashed you. But I should be there helping. I am letting them down. Erebus huffed and blew Issei to his butt. I get that, little boy, but I am doing you a favor in the long run. I am doing you a favor regardless. Quit acting spoiled and run. Run? Issei asked, curious about what he meant. Yes. Run. Erebus opened his mouth and a swirl of black fire began to form in his mouth. Oh shit. Issei said, getting off his ass and running across the void, avoiding the black fire that spewed from his mouth. Ha ha ha. This is fun. You will die if you can't control the flames, boy. You are a monster. You are trying to kill me. Ha 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 ha. That is the point. You won't learn otherwise. Now fight back. Erebus said, shooting another large jet of flame at Issei. Issei kept running for his life, only to look away now. He was looking at a black circle that was showing the raiding game that was commencing. The ORC was having a tough time. Kaneko sacrificed herself to take down a rook and 3 pawns. Kiba took down 3 pawns, 2 knights, but he lost against the remaining rook. The rook got in a cheap shot. Akeno and the Ubaluna both lost at the same time, making Rias the final one. Rias was currently fighting her way to riser now. She looked upset. I'm sorry, Rias. I have no choice now. Erebus dragged me down here, and he promises me that he is doing me a really big favor. I am so sorry for disappointing you now. Issei sighed and kept on running, remembering the final day of training. Circex came to check up upon the ORC, wanting to see how the training went. This of course angered Rias, not liking her brother at the moment for forcing her into a game just because she doesn't want to marry Riser. However, Issei got to talk to him, and got a wish granted. The wish was, if they lost the rating game, the marriage would be postponed for a month. Circex agreed, though he asked why. Issei did not give him an answer, only saying, just in case, only to return to his battle with Kaneko. Circex left after that, returning to the underworld. I promise you. I will make it up to you, Rias. I swear it. Oh shit. Issei said, finally waking up from his daydreaming. He came face to face with Erebus, who shot another giant jet of black flame right at him. Issei quickly put 2 hands together, and imagined himself splitting the flame in 2. When the flames struck Issei, the flames actually split in 2, no longer a threat against him. You are a fast learner, Issei. I am very proud of you. Now, let's turn it up a notch. Erebus said with excitement. The flame that gathered in his mouth increased by 2, and this scared the shit out of Issei. Fuck. Issei said, sprinting away, only to turn and watch the screen now. Rias was on her knees in front of Riser, tears falling. She was beaten and Issei stopped to watch. He watched Riser stand there and he heard the mocking. It was pointless from the beginning, Rias. You could never hope to defeat me, but it was a valiant fight, and I expect nothing less from my bride. Damn it, Issei. Where did you go? Rias said in between sobs. The flame struck Issei's outstretched hand. Issei held his hand up to stop the oncoming fire without even looking at it. The flame struck his hand and he just swallowed it up, then shot it back out at Erebus. Issei stood there, angry and upset at himself and Riser. He knew that Erebus was the one who took him away, but Erebus was trying to help him. He knew that. But it was Issei's fault he was so weak. If only he learned his new powers before the game. But it was not going to be enough. Erebus flew down and stood behind Issei. You should be careful with your anger, boy. I am not going to hold it in like before as much as I did. I found my release. Good. Do you think you can create fire on your own now? Issei opened his hand, palm up, and created a ball of fire at will. He then tossed it into the air, took in a big breath of air and opened his mouth. A flame gathered at his mouth and then Issei blew. The fire that shot from his mouth was equal to size from the second flame of Erebus. The flame was about the size of 4 buses stacked like a cube. Ah, you have done well. So, you told me about these new powers you had in mind. Would you mind sharing? I rather show you. When I face him. Issei said with a huff. Ah, very well. Shall we continue with the training until the time comes? Yes, please. Let us duel for a little while, then allow me some time to make the powers come to life. Very well. Let me see if you can fight me, Erebus said, breathing out a jet of flame at Issei, who just split it in 2. For the next day, Issei was training hard. He trained to fight with his new powers and Issei was ready. Read. Review. Go away D. First, previous ch 15 of 39 next. Chapter 16. Here is the next chapter, guys. 3. I hope you enjoy this one. I really do. I sure did. Smiley face. I own nothing. It was the day of the engagement party. It was the day before the actual marriage, but it was still a ceremony for the families of the 2 parties to get together. Rias was in her little room within the Phoenix household, preparing for the ceremony. She looked in the mirror with her dress, just staring at herself. Issei. Where did you go? Why did you leave me? She thought to herself, a tear forming in her left eye. Lady Rias? It is time, Graphia said from behind. Yes, of course. Rias said, preparing to go. Back in the main hall, the ORC was busy talking with Citri. Yay, she does have quite a mouth on her. I have to say though, I thought it was a good match, though I am disappointed in the outcome. I really do not like that bastard, Citri said. Oh, it isn't over yet. Akeno said. Huh? We'll get another crack at them and this time we will beat them. Yea, screw those pricks. It was then, Riser appeared upon the stage. Greets devils of the underworld. On behalf of the great house of Phoenix, Riser would like to greet each and every one of you today. This is a great moment for the devils, and I wanted you guys to know firsthand. I, Riser Phoenix, will be marrying Rias Gremory from the Gremory household. Welcome my beautiful bride, Rias Gremory. From a red magic circle next to Riser, Rias appeared in a beautiful dress. She was showing a lot of skin, but it fit her very well. She looked absolutely stunning. She opened her eyes and looked out at the crowd. At the front entrance of the household, a black circle appeared on the ground. Rising from the circle was Issei, looking upon the giant mansion with disgust. So it is time. I think it's time I kept my promise, Issei said to himself, a malicious smirk appearing. Issei approached the front gates, only to be stopped by 2 armed guards. Stop. This is a private party. Are you on the engagement list? Yes, I am. The guard on the left pulled out a clipboard. Name? Riser sucks dick, Issei yelled out, grabbing the man by his shoulder. He quickly bent him over and rammed his knee up into the man's gut, sending him to the floor, breathing heavily. Hey! What are you doing? The other guard yelled but was knocked out with a single punch to the forehead. Issei then blasted open the front door, entering the large hallway. All the way down the hallway, there was about 20 armed guards running towards the front gate, all prepared for combat. Hey! It's time for some fun. Back in the engagement party, Riser was about to kiss Rias for his guests when a guard ran up to him. My lord! We have a problem. What is it? Riser snapped with fury. He did not like being interrupted. Someone is attacking the castle. He is taking down all of your forces. What? Riser said, standing up straight now. Who is it? Unconfirmed reports say it's a boy with brown hair and brown eyes. We don't know yet. All of your forces are engaging and can't confirm it. Get in the fight then. Stop him. Riser snapped. Right away. The guard said, running with 4 more guards to help out in the hallway. Issei was smiling, already have taken down 5 of the 20 guards. He quickly grabbed a nearby guard, pushed him in front of him so another guard would punch the first guard. He then tossed the other guard into another 2 guards, grabbing the throat of the guard that punched his ally. He picked him up and tossed him to the ground. He then ducked under another punch, only to trip the guy with a leg sweep, then grabbed the jab from another guard. He kneed him in the gut, then tossed him over his shoulder onto the tripped guard. That was 4 more down. This is too easy, Issei said, grabbed 2 guards who tried to attack at the same time and slamming their heads together. He then slammed their heads together once more, knocking them out. He grabbed the jab of another guard, twisted his arm behind his back, then let out a kick to the chest of an incoming guard to his side. The guard flew into 3 other guards, sending them all to the ground. With the guard having his arm twisted behind his back, Issei followed up with a brutal hammer fist into the guy's upper back, sending him down to the ground. There were about 13 guards left, but most of them were barely getting up. He picked up a guard who was attempting to tackle him but actually letting him tackle him, but he grabbed the waist of the guard from above and picked him up, picking him up upside down. He then tossed the guard onto the 4 guards on the ground, knocking the 4 of them out. 2 guards came from behind, so Issei rammed his elbows back into their guts, then shot his fists back into their noses, sending them down for the count. The remaining 6 guards took out some stun batons, attempting to subdue him before killing him. They charged at Issei, who grabbed the wrist of the first guard, snapping it and taking the baton. He then whacked the back of the head of the same guard with the baton, knocking him out. He then stepped forward and began to swing the baton into the chests of the 5 guards, sending them staggering back. They would not go down. He quickly ducked under the first wild swing with the baton, grabbing the guard and turning him to face the other guards. Placing the baton into the guard's neck, the guard was shocked until he was unconscious. He then shoved the baton into the mouth of the other guard, which scared the crap out of the other guards, sending them running to the party. Issei, however, had a different plan. He quickly sprinted up the stairs and tackled 1 more guard, sending a fist into the man's face, making him unconscious. He looked up and saw the guards enter the main room, which Issei then smiled happily. Back in the party, Riser looked at the guards who entered shaking. You fools! Why are you in here? He is just too strong. We could not even touch him. He has been trained in physical combat. You useless idiots. Before Riser could say any more, the door was kicked open and there he was. Riser and the ORC had wide eyes at the view of Issei, who began to attack the remaining guards. He quickly ducked under the haymaker from one of the guards, using his arm to trip the guard. He then ducked under another punch, grabbing the guard by his arm. He quickly trapped his arm in his own armpit, forcing the guard to bend back in pain. Issei then sent a hammer fist into the guy's chest, sending him down. The guard on the floor from the tripping got up, but Issei just did a quick fist into the guard's face. The remaining guard charged at him, but Issei quickly blocked the fist, sending it down only to pick the guard up in a suplex. Kaneko looked at the scene with amazement, seeing her training paying off. She watched Issei fall backward, completing the wrestling move, knocking the guard out. Issei then stood up with a smile. Issei. Rias called, running down the stage a bit looking at him from afar. I am back. Who do you think you are, boy? Riser screamed at him. I am Issei Hyodo. Pawn of Rias Gremory, disciple of Kaneko Teju and Kiba Yuto. I am here to take Rias back. I am not allowing her to be forced into something she doesn't want to do. She will not give up anything she doesn't want to give up. How dare you, you little shit. Seize him. Riser called out to his guards only to stand back a bit because he has no guards. You have no more bodyguards. They were removed, all thanks to the training by Kaneko and Kiba. Riser. Is this your doing? His father asked of him. Searsex, however, appeared on the scene. So, you are here for my sister, huh? Issei growled. Yes. I want your sister back where she belongs. With me in the ORC. Searsex chuckled. This party could use some flair, I think. It isn't every day that a good party crash comes. Isn't this entertaining, Riser? Yes. Very. You there. You show great fighting spirit and potential. Do you think you can handle Riser? Riser smiled. I see now. You want to fight. Bird against. Whatever he is. I think your guests would enjoy a show. An excellent idea, my lord. Riser accepts. Issei, don't do it. Rias said, trying to stop Issei from being demolished. Relax, Rias. Issei here is a big boy. I am certain he can handle himself. You there, Issei was it. If you are the victor, what would you like to have as your reward? You can't be serious. He is a lower-class devil, a guest said. I have spoken. So, what would you like? A harem? A peerage? A title? Just ask and you will receive. Issei chuckled. There is only one thing I want. Rias Gremory, Issei said loud and proud. Rias blushed bright at his claim. Issei and Riser were transported into another dimension, where they can fight without causing damage. It is time to get started. Issei took off his jacket and his t-shirt, revealing his muscular chest. He also was barefoot and wore only a pair of long pants. Issei was sitting in Indian style, doing some heavy breathing. Ready when you are, Riser. Issei said with confidence. Yes. Let us fight. Come, boy. Riser said, forming wings of fire. Issei got up from his sitting position and smiled. He then ran at Riser. Rias. I want to apologize. Erebus took me from the battle and forced me into something. He knew I would lose against Riser back then, but I am now able to fight for you. I am sorry for letting you down that day, but now I am back and ready to make it up for you. I will not allow you to marry this bastard. Witness my training. Issei leapt into the air, and formed a fist. He then shot the fist out, sending out a jet black flame the size of 4 buses cubed. Searsex, Rias, the ORC and Riser all went wide-eyed at the fire that Issei produced. Riser quickly dodged, but not before a spark hit him on his bare chest. Riser laughed as the flame doused itself and he charged at Issei. You are certainly stronger than before, but I am a phoenix. You cannot hope to defeat the immortal bird, Riser said, shooting out a wheel of flame. The spark that doused on his chest was now a shadow. It was then swallowed by the body of Riser. Issei smirked and shot his foot out, sending in a wheel of flame of his own, colliding with Riser's. The flames exploded together, negating each other. Issei was on the offensive now. He was blasting quick bursts of fire from his feet, just swinging his feet like a madman. The fires were being blocked by Riser, but spark after spark kept landing on Riser, only for the shadow inside to get swallowed in. Issei quickly rocketed forward into Riser as he shot fire from his feet and hands, getting right up against Riser. Issei then began to punch and kick Riser, using Kaniko's training as his tool. He used fire fists, hitting the face and chest of Riser. Riser however smiled as he found his opening. He opened his mouth and shot fire at Issei, point blank. Issei's eyes went wide and was sent back in an explosion. Issei was sent flying across the battlefield, colliding with a tower. The tower crumbled under Issei, then Issei hit the ground below, rolling across. You are a fool if you think you can face me. You lose. Issei however opened his eyes and did a handstand. He began to swing his legs out like a helicopter, spinning round and round. Rings of fire began to expand and began to go after Riser, who was trying to dodge the many rings while in the air. While Riser was distracted, Issei quickly got onto his feet and into a fighting stance. He then brought his fist back and shot another flame at Riser, though this flame was twice as big as before. It was actually two flames twisting together like a tornado. Riser took the flame directly, blasting off his entire body except his head. You don't get it, do you? You cannot defeat me. I am immortal, Riser said, reforming his body, but blood was coughed out immediately after his body was regenerated. He coughed out some more blood. What? What is this? Your body is immortal, but your stamina, strength, and heart are not. Issei yelled. You want to know who I am? I am Issei His. I am master of the primal darkness, master of the shadow, master of the void. I am the disciple of the great dragon, Erebus. Issei yelled out, flying into the air. He then shot out flame from his mouth, hands and feet, roaring like a dragon. Riser stood up and growled. He then turned his entire body into fire, looking like a big bird. He then flew into the sky and began to charge at Issei. Issei however opened his mouth and breathed a breath of flame, shooting it across the sky and into Riser. Riser flew right into the flame and kept on going, laughing. Your fire is nothing compared to mine. It is weak, Riser said, going easily through it. You are a stupid man. You think fire is the only threat. Issei stopped shooting flames, then formed a fire fist. He then aimed his fist and his fist collided with Riser's. An explosion happened and both Riser and Issei were sent on opposite sides of the field. Issei was on his knees, breathing heavily and looking at the ground. However, Riser was up and coming closer. You stupid fool. I am immortal. You cannot defeat me. You are weak, Riser said while he formed a large fire wheel above Issei. You will now perish, you prick, Riser yelled. Riser however spat out a massive amount of blood, sending himself to his knees. I told you. Fire isn't the only threat to you. That fire is not pure flame. It's fire mixed with the power of the primal darkness. The shadow was injected into your body every time you blew apart the flames. When you went headfirst into my flame, you subjected yourself to a ton of my shadow. The shadow you received is poison. Riser was sent to his hands and knees as he began to ignore on fire, trying to repair the damage. The poison you see is great. The primal darkness is much stronger than your own fire, fool. While you can repair the damage, it will train your stamina greatly. Riser screamed in pain as he coughed up another portion of his blood. Damn you, Riser said, repairing his damage. He then struggled to his feet, only to look up and see a really hurt Issei. You made Rias suffer. You lose, bastard. Issei did a powerful jab into Riser's face, using his fire to enhance his strength. The fist collided and sent Riser skidding across the ground. Riser was unconscious once the fist hit him. Searzex spoke. The winner is Issei His. Issei collapsed to the ground, his body burnt, bruised, and there were many cuts. He fell to the ground, on his side, unconscious. Rias looked at him. Issei. You did it. You saved me. It was with that, Rias and the ORC escaped the party with Issei, who was passed out, sleeping soundly. He was utterly exhausted, fighting such a powerful enemy. Read. Review. Moo. Oink. FWOMP. This is not the final chapter by any means. I still have more fun planned. Mwahahaha. Oh. The Hydra's name from the last chapter. It is Greek for poison. First, previous ch 16 of 39. Next, chapter 17. Hello everyone. I am here to tell you some news about this story. I have decided that this story is going to be even longer than I expected. I started remembering events in the light novel, and I decided on several things I want to put in. One of them is very important for this story. Winking face. So this story is not over yet. Ahahaha. My longest story yet, bitches. It's funny though. It's not even my favorite anime, light novel, yet this would be longer than any Rosario fix I've done. Cheeky smiley face, it's quite neat. Anyways, here is the chapter. Please enjoy. I own nothing. This story does not exactly follow the light novel in terms of order. There are some familiar things from the lane, but I assure you, most of it is just randomly thrown together for a new story. You will see that this party brings some new things to play. It was the day after the battle with Riser at his mansion. Issei saved Rias from a terrifying fate of being married to Riser, a douchebag who thinks because he is immortal, he is all-powerful. Issei defeated him, though it was a close fight. Issei only won because his new powers were unknown, and this gave him the edge. Issei saved Rias for many reasons. 1. He promised her he would fight for her to not marry. He broke the promise when Erebus dragged him out of the game. 2. He wanted Rias to be happy. 3. And this is one Issei has a hard time believing after all he has been through. He likes Rias a lot. Issei liked Rias Gremory as a woman. A single woman. She was beautiful, smart, had giant breasticles, caring, and she was very kind. He knew it was impossible for her to like him like he likes her, but he would still keep her safe. Issei was, despite his very lonely lifestyle, a caring person. Even through all the hardships, he still cared for others. He cared for everyone in the ORC. Issei was currently laying on the couch in the ORC room, sleeping peacefully. It was nighttime, so about 24 hours passed since the fight. Issei was no longer injured from the fight as his wounds have healed, but his stamina is still recharging. Inside Issei's mind, Issei was inside the void once again, talking with Erebus. Issei can only talk to Erebus when his strength is close to its strongest. He could not do this after the fight with Riser because Issei was extremely weak in terms of stamina and strength. That was quite an interesting fight of yours, boy. Erebus said with an amused tone. Erebus was quite happy with the fight, so he was entertained and pleased. I was definitely right to give you these powers and to help train you. You have entertained me and I am grateful. So these new powers of yours. I have to say I haven't actually ever thought of using the powers of the primal darkness as poison. I am glad to have kept you entertained. I was entertained myself. He was a very difficult fight for me. He was really powerful. I could feel his power, but you aren't even close to your top strength. If you train hard enough, you could become equal to me, and I really like the idea of that. You saying you want me to overthrow you? Issei said with a smirk. Erebus blew a puff of breath at Issei, knocking him to his ass. I can easily just take away the powers, boy, but I do like the idea of you being my equal. We can fight, and that would be most entertaining. I think that sounds like a splendid idea. I really do enjoy this fighting I have done. It really is an adrenaline rush, isn't it? Very. It makes me very excited every time I fight. It is even better against strong opponents or multiple weaker ones. Oh yes. The one in the hallway was very nice. The training with the swordsman and the Nekomata did you a great service. What is a Nekomata? I heard you call Kaneko that. Well, it's a race. It's a cat race kind of. A cat-human hybrid race. Though I think you should not talk to her about this until she is ready to tell you. The girl, Kaneko I think her name is, doesn't seem very open. I've noticed that too. Anyways, tell me, what made you decide to make this power that way? Well, I am not sure. I always thought the way venom in snakes, spiders or any other animal worked was pretty neat. I also thought it would be more mentally taxing on the opponent if they felt themselves getting weaker and weaker over time. I thought it would make them panic and slip up. It really is quite interesting the way the venom works. I think it's one of the few animals I can adore. They are so tiny yet so strong. It's really admirable. I would also agree that I think it would make your opponents slip up. I felt the fear from Riser. It was absolutely delicious. I felt the fear too. I enjoyed it. A silence fell on the two for a few minutes as they had nothing to say. Well, I think it is time you woke up in the real world. Your body is fully healed, so you should be good to go. I shall go and take a nap again. Good night. Lazy dragon. Issei muttered, which got him a puff of air by Erebus, who chuckled. Issei then disappeared from the void, waking up in the real world. Issei woke up on the couch, his eyes fluttering open. He then yawned loudly, stretching until his left hand felt something soft and silky. He turned his head and yelped loudly, falling off the couch, only to hit his head on the countertop. Oh fuck me. Issei said, rubbing his forehead from the impact. That hurt. Issei then looked up and noticed Rias was on the couch, now sitting up and awake. She put her head on her knee, smiling at him. She was completely naked and was showing everything from her great jiggly jugs to her awesome womanhood. Issei then looked away, looking towards the ceiling. Oh, good evening Rias. Sorry for waking you. Nonsense Issei. I am actually glad you are awake. Oh you are? Issei said. Yes. I want to thank you. For what? For saving me. You saved me from Riser's grasp. Oh, it was nothing. You should be thanking Erebus. I will in time, but it was you Issei who fought your way into the mansion. And fought for me. You, my adorable pawn, fought for me Rias Gremory. Not the president. Not the Gremory. But me. Rias. Of course I did. I couldn't stand you being forced into something you didn't want to do. You don't deserve such a fate and it is my duty as your servant to keep you safe. Issei said. Rias frowned for a moment at what Issei said, but then she smiled. Issei. I cannot thank you enough for what you did for me. You really are a great person. Oh, it really was nothing. You were worth it. Rias blushed from what he said. Issei look. The engagement may be over, but this isn't the last we will hear of it. Not by a long shot. Then I will keep on fighting. I will keep on training and I make sure you do not have to marry anyone you do not want to. I will make sure you are kept safe. Issei said boldly. Rias blushed and Issei rubbed the back of his head shyly. Besides, it's my duty anyway. I am your pawn after all. It was then Rias grabbed Issei by his jacket and pulled him up. Rias planted her lips onto him, kissing him passionately. Issei's eyes went wide, he started blushing but he froze up completely. It lasted about 10 seconds, but it was heavenly for Issei. Issei loved it immensely. What was that for? Issei asked suddenly. It was my first kiss. Are you sure you wanted to give it to me? Yes. I liked it. Oh. Heh heh. Issei said, rubbing the back of his head. I am glad then. The door to the main room opened and the rest of the ORC walked in. Hey President. Kiba said with a smile. Hey. Kaneko said. We aren't interrupting anything are we? Not right now anyway. Rias said with a smile. What are you all doing here? We wanted to see if Issei was awake. Kiba said. Why? Issei asked. You fought amazingly back there Issei. It was quite hot. Akeno said while licking her finger. Oh really? Well I am glad that I gave you a good show. Yay dude. That was amazing. You really did train hard. Kiba said with a thumbs up. And my training is not over. I have more training I want to do. My magic is already top notch, but I want to work on other things too. I would love if I could have some training partners. I would be glad to help. Kiba said with a smile. We are bros after all right? Yay, we are. Issei said with a smile. I could help you train. Kaneko said quietly. Actually, you would be the one I need the most Kaneko. Issei said with a goofy smile. Alright. Rias was sitting back on the couch, head on her knee while showing off her goods. So, I think we need to celebrate. A bright red circle appeared behind everyone. Out came Sirzex. I agree completely. I would love to have a party now. Issei quickly stood up and walked over to Sirzex. I want to thank you for listening to my wish from you. Oh, it was nothing. I now see why you asked for such a wish. I was very impressed with this fight. It was close. I am glad to have given you a show, though now I think I want to fight you here in the future someday. Oh? Sirzex said with a smile. Well, name the time and I will see if I can oblige you. Like you, I do enjoy a fight but I don't get many challengers. Perhaps it's because people fear the king of the devils? It is. Though why do you not fear me? Oh I fear you. I just embrace the fear. It makes things more fun. I like your style Issei. You have quite a set of steel balls. Hey. When you get a second chance at life, you want to live life to its fullest and I plan on living my life. Good man. So, Rias, interested in this party? I think it sounds good. When? About an hour? You could come now of course, but there would be barely anyone there. I think Riser is coming. Issei raised a brow. Is that wise? Why wouldn't it be? He no longer has a claim to Rias. Plus I think you two could make good rivals. I suppose. But I don't know if he would want to face me after losing to me. Give him some credit. He isn't all bad. Whatever you say, my lord, Issei said, with a slight tone of mocking. He isn't a giant fan of authority. Searsex just smirked and disappeared into the circle. When Searsex left, Issei felt a pull on his left ear. Ow 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 ow. Issei said. Rias was holding onto his ear and looking at him sternly, while naked. You really have no filter, do you? Issei smiled sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head. Rias just sighed and smiled. I am glad you are enjoying yourself, Issei. It makes me happy you are being happy yourself. So once again, thank you so much for saving my life. Rias said, while hugging him tightly, her naked chest right up against his own. Everyone looked at this while Issei was just frozen like a statue, and weakly put his arms around her. Rias has fallen for him. Kiba, Akeno and Kiba all thought together. Rias let Issei go. I am going to go get ready for the party. You all can come if you like. It was with that, Rias left and everyone here prepared to go to the party in the underworld. Read. Review. Moo. First, previous ch 17 of 39 next. Chapter 18. Here is the next chapter. This chapter was slightly difficult to write, due to the feels I felt while I wrote this chapter. I think this chapter is really good, so I hope you like it as much as I did. I could have split this chapter into 2 chapters, but I thought you guys deserved a special treat. No cliffhangers. 3. So without further ado, here is the next chapter in my story. Please, enjoy. I own nothing. The ORC, minus Issei, traveled from the clubhouse room through a magic circle to get to the party. Issei told Rias he would join shortly, using his own transportation. Rias was curious, but Issei wouldn't tell her. He sighed and put on some decent clothes instead of his worn-out clothing from the fight in the mansion. He put on a nice black cargo pants, a white t-shirt, and he also put on a nice black leather jacket. He wore the jacket like a shirt, not bothering to zip it up. Issei then walked up to the mirror, smiling. Damn, I'm fine. Issei said, chuckling. He then opened a portal to the void, entering it quietly. Erebus. Wakey wakey. Erebus was laying on the ground, sleeping, only to jolt wide awake from Issei yelling. Where's the fire? Erebus said with a grumpy tone. Ah, don't be like that. I just wanted to know if you would like to come to a party with me in the ORC in the underworld. A party? I suppose that sounds interesting. I have never been to one. Well, come. Of course you might want to change your size. Hey, I can do that quite easily. So, shall we go? Yes, let's. Erebus opened up a void portal to the underworld. He changed his size into a much smaller dragon, about a quarter the size of his original form. He however retained all his features, still making him terrifying. They both then walked through the portal, coming out from the sky. Dragon. A guest called from the party. A lot of screaming began to occur and panic. This made Erebus laugh loudly, his laugh booming across the sky. Fear. It really is a wonderful thing. Ha ha. Erebus yelled out, landing in the middle of the party. Issei jumped off of him, smiling. Coming from a table, Rias grabbed Issei by his cheek, pinching it. Ow 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 ow. What did I do now? Issei complained. You brought Erebus here with you? You are causing panic, you twit. But he was bored. Rias sighed and chuckled. Alright, I forgive you. But you really should stop causing such trouble. Oh, but trouble is fun. Issei. Rias growled out. Behave. No promises, he said, running off. Rias was about to retort, but Issei was gone. Damn that boy. He just is what he wants. Akeno chuckled from her seat. You know, it is like you adopted a younger brother. You know they always just love to get on your nerves. Oh, he is doing a great job at that, but I can't really complain, I suppose. He does make things more interesting, doesn't he? I do. Ever since he came along, I think things have been more fun for us. Kiba then spoke up himself. I have to agree with Akeno. It has been boring before Issei came along. Are you saying that I did not entertain you, Kiba? Rias said with a joking but deadly tone. Erebus laughed out loud and walked closer to them. I think he means that you don't entertain him as much as Issei or I do. Ah, so you must be Issei's trainer, I take it? Akeno asked. Indeed, my fallen angel friend. Erebus said with a grin. Everyone except Kaneko, who was not there at the table, gasped as only the Issei knew about Akeno. How did you know? Akeno asked. It is quite simple. I know everything really. I am the first you know. The first what? Kiba asked. I am Erebus, the beginning. The master of the void. Master of the primal darkness. I am the master of the chaotic darkness that existed before the light appeared. I was here before the dawn of creation. I created the gods and goddesses who in turn created you through the evolution process. I saw you guys evolve from just itty-bitty monkeys, though you guys haven't evolved that much. Erebus said the last part with a bit of bitter humor. Oh, I see. Well, this is quite an interesting development. Who knew that you, an all-powerful being, gave Issei his power? Though I must ask. Why him? Kiba said. Rias spoke up for Erebus. Because Erebus deemed Issei in need of the power, due to his suffering. He thought it would give him a fighting chance at making things right. Don't forget that I also gave him his powers because it entertained me, Erebus said. Are you bored all the time where you are? Akeno asked. Yes. I am quite bored. I have been bored for millions of years, but ever since Issei connected to the void when he was born, I knew I may have found someone to keep me entertained. You knew Issei since he was born? Rias asked with surprise. Oh yes. He was an interesting baby. He did the strangest things, but perhaps it was what all babies did. Speaking of strange things, where is Issei? Akeno asked. Erebus looked into the sky for a few moments. He is in the castle right now, following the Nekomata. Following Kaneko? Rias asked. Yes, it seems Kaneko is walking into the forest right now behind the castle. Should we go investigate? Kiba asked. I think so, Rias asked. Erebus however did not agree. I say we let Issei handle this one. Why? Rias asked. Simple. Whatever has been haunting the mind of the Nekomata, I think Issei could help her. Alright. I will trust your judgment. Alright, so, let us play some party games, Erebus said. I want to experience what you people do at a party. Sounds like a plan. Rias said with a smile. Out in the forest, Kaneko was sitting down on a rock, her head moving side to side, as if looking for someone. Out from behind a tree, a girl with a black kimono, giant breasts only slightly smaller than Akeno's and Rias's and cat ears. She smiled with an intense pressure, her strength was immense. Hello Sharon. It's been a while, Nian. The girl said with a bright smile. You. Kaneko said, violently shaking out of fear and anger. Yes, it is I, your sister. Nian. What are you doing here? I heard there was a party and you were going to it. I just had to drop by. Nian. Why do you want to see me? It is simple. You are coming with me. I don't want to. I will force you if I have to. Just stay away from me. Have it your way then. Kuroka said, walking towards Kaneko while emitting a green mist. This is my special poison, meant to paralyze my victims. You are coming with me whether you like it or not. You are my sister. Kuroka reached forwards Kaneko, but a shadowy black hand gripped Kuroka's wrist, twisting her wrist and pulling her hand away from Kaneko. Who dares touch me? Kuroka said, turning her head towards the large man in front of her. It was Issei who looked down at her with anger. Issei. Why are you here? Kaneko asked weakly. Issei turned to Kaneko and smiled a bit. I followed you here. You felt like you were having a bad day, so I wondered what was wrong. My gut is telling me it has to do with your sister here. If I heard correctly. I was a bit far away but it sounded like she was your sister. I am her older sister Kuroka. How are you not injured by my poison? She asked, trying to pry the dark hand from her own wrist. Simple. I am a master of poison myself. Poison, venom or any sort of toxin will do me no harm. Issei put his hand on Kuroka's stomach then flung her away from him and Kaneko, crossing his arms. She landed on her feet like a cat would. I see. Then how about you handle my senjutsu? Kuroka roared out, charging at Issei. Issei Simple just grabbed both of her fists in his shadowy black hands, keeping her still. What is your name? Issei asked of Kuroka. My name is Kuroka. Kaneko here is Sharon. How the hell are you so strong? Ah, Kuroka. Cute name, but, I want you to know something. Kaneko is my friend and I am her protector. You will not lay a finger on her. I will not allow it. You are her sister, so I am showing you mercy. I want you to leave now. Issei said. Kaneko blushed and her eyes went slightly wider after hearing Issei talk about protecting her. Damn you. I am not leaving without my sist, that is enough, Kuroka. We need to go, said a male voice. Issei turned his attention to his right as he still held onto the fists of Kuroka, who was struggling. Out from a dimensional void came a man wrapped in white armor. Valley. What are you doing here? Kuroka asked. It is almost time we begin our plans. Ah, damn it, fine. I will be back, Sharon. I will not give up on you. Issei chuckled and let go of Kuroka, letting her go with Valley. What is your name? Valley asked of Issei. Issei Hyodo, my dragon-wielding friend. Valley Lucifer is my name. It is a pleasure to meet someone strong. Ah, the pleasure is all mine. Say, how about we have a friendly spar one of these days? I think that would be quite lovely. I will see you around, Issei. Valley said, leaving with Kuroka into the void. Issei turned and picked up Kaneko, putting her on his left shoulder, carrying her back. I think it's time we return to the party. I do want to know why you are so upset with your sister Kaneko, but I am not going to pry you. You can tell me when you are ready. Kaneko looked down, unsure right now. Did you mean what you said? About protecting me? Of course. I will protect everyone I care about. That is why I used part of my super form back there. Like sacred gears, I have something like a balance breaker that I have worked on. I just used part of one of the 3 balance breakers I owned. Your sister is quite strong. Despite me not showing it back there, her firsts hurt. Ha, but know this, Kaneko. I will always protect you. I hope you really mean that. Kaneko whispered to herself as she and Issei returned to the party together. Back in the party, Erebus was currently letting all the devil, fallen angel and angel children use him as a jungle gym. He was just laying there, talking with Michael of the angels. So, how is Issei doing? Michael asked. He is doing fine. In fact, he is returning to the party with one of his friends. Ah, how lovely. Gabriel and I want to offer him something as an apology. Ah. Well, I think he would appreciate the gesture, but I don't think he would care if he got a wish or not. Either way, my brother and I still want to offer our apologies, Gabriel said. Well, here he comes now, Erebus said, turning his head towards the castle itself. Coming from the castle, Kaneko and Issei were walking together. Kaneko looked a bit upset and Issei smelled a battle. Hello, Erebus. Ah, whom are these 2 angels? I am Michael and this is my sister Gabriel. Ah, I remember both of you from the fight when I lost control. Gabriel looked at Erebus. I thought you wiped his memory. Erebus smiled. Must have slipped my mind. For that, I wish to apologize for my actions that day. I wasn't myself and I lost control. Please forgive me for my actions. There is no need to apologize, Issei. Gabriel said. My brother and I want to apologize to you for letting you suffer so long. It is a thing of the past. I don't require a gift from you guys. Oh, well, we would still like to offer you one wish from each of us, so if you need anything, just call. I'll keep it in mind, Issei said with a smile. If you don't mind, I would like to go back to my group. Of course. I am glad you are doing well, Michael said. As am I, Issei said, walking away. Michael and Gabriel went back to talking with Erebus and now Azazel, who came as well. Walking back with Kaneko, Issei arrived at the large table with the rest of the ORC who were busy eating. Oh, welcome back, Issei, Ria said with a smile. She so adored her Issei. He was such a great person. Yay. I just wanted to make sure Kaneko was feeling okay. Kaneko had a bad stomach, so I brought her back. Rias knew this was a lie since Erebus told her where Kaneko went, but she didn't bring it up. Issei was protecting Kaneko. Issei laid down on one of those large chairs that also work as a bed. He sighed and relaxed, resting in the warm night. He then felt a presence upon his chair, so he opened one eye and saw Kaneko sit down next to him, looking at the floor. What is it? Issei asked with worry. I'm afraid, Kaneko said. Rias, Akano and Kiba all left, letting Kaneko talk with Issei. Afraid? Is it your sister? Partially. Well, I am listening. What are you so afraid of? Kaneko then began to talk about her past, talking about how she was sentenced to death because of her sister losing control and killing her master. She talked about how Sears saved her and gave her to Rias. Issei listened for the 30 minutes as Kaneko poured out her life story, and Issei never interrupted. Kaneko finished and Issei sat up. Issei rubbed the top of her head softly, stroking her like he would a pet. I can see why you hate your sister, but you haven't told me why you are afraid. I am afraid if I use my powers, I will go out of control like my sister. Kaneko said with a slight sob and fear in her voice. Issei understood her completely. Issei too was afraid of losing control of his powers, but he kept on using them because he wanted to protect his friends. At this rate, I will become useless. I am going to become too weak to help Rias. I know what you mean. I may not look like it, but I too fear of losing control. My powers are dangerous, and if I bottle up my feelings again, I will become that monster you fought with that one night. Then why do you use your powers? Kaneko said, turning to look at Issei. Kaneko had tears in her eyes and fear on her face. She looked really afraid. Issei felt really bad for her, hating to see such a cute face in fear. Because I want to protect people. Including you, Kaneko. Issei picked up Kaneko and hugged her gently. I want to protect you. Kaneko just laid there, tears streaming down her face. Shush. Don't worry about it. I am not telling you to use your powers like I am. Just be yourself, Kaneko. I want to use my powers. Issei stopped hugging Kaneko and looked her in the eyes. Then if you do, I will definitely protect you. I will make sure you will never lose control. You will never have to worry about becoming like your sister Kaneko. Because I will be there. Always. Issei said with a gentle smile. Kaneko looked at Issei and her mind began to race. She felt her face heat up and she looked down. She then stood up and walked away, confusing the hell out of Issei, but Issei let it go. He went back to his resting, letting Kaneko go off on her own. Everyone needs alone time and Issei assumed she does as well. He sighed happily and began to drift off to sleep, dreaming great dreams. Read. Review. Go fuck yourself laughing face, first, previous ch 18 of 39 next. Chapter 19 here is the next chapter. I think it's kind of meh. But meh. I will be doing a time skip for the next chapter as I do not want to drag this chapter out. XD you shall see my new plans for Issei in the next chapter. So I haven't decided yet, but I may add some new additions to Issei's harem. I was thinking about Kuroka but I am not 100% sure. I thought about adding Ophis and her innocence, but I am not sure either. I thought about Irina, but I am not sure how that would work out considering she would be an angel. I could try to add Ravel in, but since I did not introduce her at all in the previous chapters, it may be difficult. I will not be adding Asia. I will not add Zenobia either. So the possible additions are Kuroka, Ravel and Ophis. So, I own nothing. Without further interruption, here is my story. Please, enjoy. Issei walked into the ORC clubroom around noon on the day after the party, which was on Saturday. So it is Sunday at noon when Issei arrived to see Rias. However, she was not there when he arrived. In fact, he found himself alone. I wonder where she is at. I really need to see her. Issei said with a sigh before plopping down onto the couch. He leaned his head over the back of the couch, looking up at the ceiling before closing his eyes to meditate. It was about 10 minutes into his meditation when he felt something climb into his lap. When he woke up from his trance he looked down and saw Kaneko, sitting upon his lap. She was looking right up at him, cat ears upon her head and a big smile on her face. She looked absolutely adorable. Issei raised an eyebrow at Kaneko's new actions. Never once has she sat on his lap. She had bright happy eyes and was showing off a lot of happiness. I shall be sitting here from now on, nya. Kaneko said with a cat-like ending. This was how her sister talked as well, so this was kind of interesting for Issei to say the least. Issei was still confused as hell, not understanding why she was acting this way. She began to twitch her cat ears which began to overload Issei with cuteness. Oh god, I am falling for her too. She is just too cute, Issei said in his mind. The door opened to the room and in walked Akeno, Kiba and Rias. When Rias arrived, Rias spotted Kaneko's change in demeanor and where she was sitting. She growled and sent a threatening glare to Kaneko who glared back. There was intense pressure in the room and Issei was unsure why. I am glad you guys are here, Issei said while gently picking Kaneko off of his lap so he could stand. I wanted to tell you that I am leaving. Leaving? Rias asked, no longer glaring at Kaneko. Why are you leaving and to where? I am not leaving the Devils or the ORC, but I am going to go train with Erebus. We talked earlier today and he is going to train me. What kind of training? I rather just surprise you all with the results. I also want to say this. I may not actually make it back alive. Erebus trains with the intent to kill. If I am not strong enough, I will die. I just wanted to let you know before I leave. Rias smiled a bit, proud of Issei for getting stronger without her needing to push him. How long? The rest of summer. So about 3 more months. I will make it back in time for school to start its second term. I think I will actually return on that day. Alright, I will let you go. Please return to me though. Of course. Issei said with a smile. Rias then crossed the distance and planted a kiss onto Issei's lips, shoving her tongue into his mouth as he stood there frozen in surprise. Kaneko began to clench her fists, glaring at Rias. Rias looked towards Kaneko and glared right back at her, as if saying, "He's mine." Kaneko did not like this one bit, but before she could make her way to Issei, a black hole appeared under Issei's feet. "Let's go, Playboy. We got training to do," Erebus said from the hole. Issei was dragged by a clawed hand which he yelped. "Bring him back safely, Erebus," Rias called. "No promises," Erebus said, closing the hole behind Issei. Rias sighed, then turned to glare at Kaneko. "Want to explain to me what you think you are doing, Kaneko? You are too slow. I am going to make my moves since you seem unable to do." "How dare you? I am your master and Issei is my servant. You do not get to have him. Matters of the heart are more important than a social standing. Why, you little." Kaneko stood in a fighting stance while Rias began to glow with her destructive power. Akeno and Kiba stood on the sidelines with a sweat drop. "Should we help?" Kiba asked. "I dunno. This might be kind of interesting," Akeno said while licking one of her fingers. She so enjoyed a love feud. "Shall we leave?" "Yay. We should let them figure this out on their own," Akeno said, leaving the room with Kiba. "He doesn't even have a clue, does he?" Kiba said after shutting the door behind him. "Nope. He seems to be completely oblivious to it. He seems like a smart kid, but I am not sure why, but he does not see that those two have fallen for him, though Kaneko only did so yesterday and I suppose Rias was only a week ago too, but still. Poor guy," Kiba said with a light laugh. Akeno agreed and laughed with him, heading to their own homes. Back in the clubroom, Akeno and Rias were still glaring at each other with each other's own powers swirling around them. However, Kaneko was the first to stop emitting her powers. This provoked Rias into calming down as well, seeing Kaneko stop, and Rias knew why she stopped. "Why are you trying to steal him?" Rias asked calmly. "I claimed him first. He does not recognize you as his girlfriend. I still have a right to him as well," Kaneko said. "Plus, I love him." "Love him? You were indifferent to him for the longest time. How are you suddenly in love with him?" Rias asked incredulously. She was also curious about Kaneko's change. "Because he cares. He is strong, brave, kind, and he said that he wanted me to be me. He showed me that he was one who never gives up, never gives in. He will fight to his dying breath to protect people." Rias sighed. "That is like him, isn't it?" Kaneko just nodded. "I suppose we will have to see who claims him first," Rias said. She wanted Issei to herself, but she couldn't stop Kaneko from trying for him. Issei was the kindest boy she knows and would willingly put his life on the line for her or anyone in the ORC. Issei would be the one to gather a lot of women. If they would just let him near them. Rias sighed and watched Kaneko leave without saying anything, seeing how it's getting close to dinner time. Back in the void, Erebus was already pushing Issei to his limit. Issei was being brutally trained by the dragon. Issei was currently doing some sit-ups while hanging upside down on a bar. He also had a large rock hanging on his chest, making it extremely difficult to perform this task. It also did not help that Issei was engulfed in a black flame the entire time, making Issei heat up. "You really have no fear, Issei. A normal person would have succumbed to the fear of death, and would have died already. You can do this," Erebus said, cheering him on. Erebus cared for Issei, which is why he put Issei through this rough training. If Issei could do this and make it out alive, the results would be immense. "Come on, boy. You have a month and a half in this hell hole. We haven't even gotten started. There is no stopping the training. What if I need to use the bathroom or eat?" Issei said in a joking manner. Erebus chuckled. You are in an alternate dimension. You will not need to use the bathroom or eat or drink. The dimension will sustain you. Now stop talking and do this faster. Erebus yelled at him, increasing the heat of the flames. Issei began to go faster with his sit-ups, wanting to train harder and harder for Kaneko, Rias, Akeno and Kiba. He wanted to protect his friends. He also wanted to fight, and becoming stronger was a great way to find opponents to fight. Back in the ORC room, only Rias was there. She sighed while sitting at her desk and looking out the window. I have to deal with Kaneko now. Oh Issei. Why can't you see I like you? Read. Review. Go away. Shoo fly, don't bother Medi. First, previous ch 19 of 39. Next chapter 20. Here is the next chapter. I think this chapter is good, but you may not like it. Next few chapters may not have any real fighting, so forgive me, but I want to help the girls get closer to Issei. Cheeky smiley face. I still need to put Akeno into the harem, and I think I will add Ophis here soon as well. So, I hope you enjoy this chapter. I enjoyed writing it. I own nothing. P.S. This is a time skip, 3 months after Issei left to train. It was a Sunday in August, when the Kuo Academy came under attack. Fire rained from the skies within the strong barrier that enveloped this school. The fire collided with this barrier, unable to penetrate it. It just weakly exploded onto it. Then the war came. Devils, fallen angels, and the ORC went out to war. The ORC was deployed against a small group of the enemy, attempting to end the greatest threat. However, it proved to be too much for them. Within the barrier, there was a dimensional portal that was left open. The ORC went through this portal to get to the enemy. However, they found out they were clearly outmatched. Each and every one of them were bruised, black-eyed and bound by chains. Who are you? Rias asked weakly. I am Valley. I am better known as the White One or the Vanishing Dragon. Rias gasped. So you are siding with these terrorists? What of the Red One? For the time being. It isn't that we care about their plans, but they seemed the most fun. As for the Red One, I have not seen or heard of him. He has not arisen yet, or he is really good at hiding. Why did you capture us? For your brother. I captured you to fight your brother, the Mao. I desire strong opponents, and who is stronger than Azazel, or the Mao? Or Michael? About to wish you hadn't. Said a male voice from above towards the entrance to this cave where the portal was. Valley turned around and Rias looked up, looking at the man who came in. This man was half naked, only wearing a nice pair of shorts. He had no shirt on and you could see the muscles. This man was built like a fighter. He had pretty thick arms, thick legs, and his body just looked like pure muscle. If there was anyone you could relate him to, it would be Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. His entire body was just like his, but he didn't have the mask though nor the armor. His body was just muscular and well-toned. Issei. Rias said with wide eyes and a happy smile. So he is one of yours. This is quite interesting. So, where have you been all this time? You haven't been around. Valley said, rubbing his chin. He was wearing his armor without the mask. I was off training with my friend, Erebus. I came back today as I wanted to surprise everyone with a week early visit, only to find out that my school has turned into a war zone, and some guy ended up beating up on my friends. So, I am here now to kick your ass. Any questions? Issei said, coming down the steps closer and closer to Valley. No, I think this is a perfect warm-up to the Mao. Valley said, igniting his boosters and putting his mask on. He then slammed his fist into Issei's chest. Issei took the hit and staggered back a little. Valley then began to wail on him with his elbows and fists. After a combo strike from Valley with an elbow to his ribs and 2 jabs to his face, Issei grabbed his 3rd jab, then his 4th jab, holding him there. Is this all you have? Victory has eluded you. Issei said, now slamming Valley's fists into his own masked face, breaking the mask off. Issei's power was immense and suffocating. Damn, you got stronger than we last met. This is really something. Ha ha ha. This is really worth taking your friends hostage. Valley said with enthusiasm. He raised his hand and said. Divide x10. Issei stood there and Valley looked at him shocked. Partner. Our divine dividing is not working on him. He seems immune to our power. How is that possible? Valley yelled at his partner, Albion. I do not have an answer to that. Perhaps he knows? When Valley turned his head back to Issei, Issei was on the offensive. Issei swung his fist in a wild haymaker, attempting to smack Valley in the side of the head. Valley ducked under his fist quickly, then sending his own fist into an uppercut, smacking Issei in the jaw. Issei was now being forced into a corner, not even blocking. Valley was now doing left and right hooks, pounding it into Issei's cheeks and jaw. After 5 strikes, Issei blocked the 6th one, which was Valley's right fist. Then Issei sent his own fist into Valley's gut, cracking the armor greatly. Issei then did a brutal uppercut right into Valley's jaw, sending him staggering back while spitting out blood, but Issei wasn't finished. He stood back, then Spartan kicked Valley right in the chest, sending him to the ground hard. Rias was watching the fight when she noticed her group was waking up. They were groaning and they sat up alert after hearing some punches and fighting, only to see it was Issei and Valley. Rias? Is that really Issei? Akano asked curiously. Yes. It is our Issei, he came back, Rias said. His training looks like it paid off. Kaneko said, her cat ears drooped from the pain. She had her tail out and it was weakly sitting in her lap. He looks much bigger. Yes. Do you feel that intense pressure coming from him? Just feel that insane power he holds in his fists. Kiba said, trying to recover himself. Everyone stopped talking and just watched Issei fight with Valley. Partner. This opponent of ours has immense strength and he is unable to be affected by our powers. What do you suggest we do? We fight. We can't give in. We can still beat him. Albion let out a sigh. You there. Issei was it. How are you unaffected from my power? I have never met an opponent that could not be affected by divine dividing. Issei slammed Valley up against a wall and attempting a right hook into his face, but Valley ducked and Issei's hand went into the rock, making a large hole. Valley then punched into Issei's gut, did an uppercut, followed by a brutal backhanded fist with his right hand, only for Issei to block the following right hook by Valley, but Valley took the opening and grabbed onto Issei's shoulder with his right hand, then began to slam his left hand into Issei's gut over and over and over, hitting him 5 times. Valley began to push Issei away to deliver a powerful haymaker of his own, but Issei quickly spun around with a 360 jump, then slammed his right fist down into Valley's face. Valley was sent to the ground not because of the fist, but because of the power it held. Valley took the hit, stumbled back a bit, then fell to the ground. Valley coughed out some blood, but then Issei followed up with a kick directly into Valley's gut, sending him across the room a few feet. Valley quickly got up and roared in fury, attempting a wild haymaker, but Issei ducked under his fist, sent his right hand into Valley's gut, sending Valley to hold his gut, but then Issei struck downwards with his left fist, sending Valley to his knees, which Issei followed up with an uppercut, sending Valley onto his feet to stumble back. Issei then sent a right hook directly into Valley's left knee, sending him to his knees once again, only to follow up with a Spartan kick to Valley's chest, sending him crashing into the rock wall. Valley coughed out some blood, trying to stand up, but was only able to stand up by leaning on the wall. Damn it. I cannot defeat you. How is it? You have gotten so strong. Simple. I trained. I trained with the most powerful force in the entire universe. Erebus. Who is this Erebus and how has he trained you to ignore my powers? Oh. How am I unaffected by your powers? I, like Erebus, control the powers of primal darkness. The most powerful thing in this universe. It existed before any other power came. It was the darkness that existed before the light ever came. The darkness that this world has, is nothing compared to the ancient darkness. I surround myself with an aura of my darkness, so I have some protection against magical powers. As you seem to have the power of light, you are completely negated by my own darkness. Who is this Erebus? Valley demanded of Issei. Tell me. Erebus is the first being to ever exist. He lives in the void. He was the one who created God, but did not create humans or devils and the like. He created all the gods that exist. You are looking at the disciple of the most powerful creature that shall ever walk this earth. I shall return and I shall defeat you when we next meet. You shall not escape. Issei said, charring at Valley. However, Valley disappeared into another portal, so Issei rammed into the rock wall. Gra W. Issei roared out, punching the rock wall with his power, breaking down the wall. Issei. Rias called out. Issei quickly turned and went over, grabbing onto the chains. These were magical chains that were only able to be broken by pure physical strength, and no one here had the strength to do it but Issei. Issei ripped the chains in two for all of the ORC, tossing them aside. Can you guys walk? They all nodded and stood up, walking towards the exit. Issei walked behind them, making sure they all got out okay. When they exited the dimension, Rias turned to Issei and smiled. Thank you, Issei, for saving us. Oh, it really was nothing. He was a piece of cake to defeat. Rias quickly planted her lips onto Issei, kissing him deeply. Issei stood there like a statue, still not used to being kissed. Kaneko was glaring at Rias angrily, not liking Rias taking Issei from her. Rias let go of Issei's mouth after about 10 seconds, making Issei blink in confusion as usual. He was so confused on why he was being kissed so much. He knew it wasn't because she liked him, but was it because she just cared enough? I mean, she was a gremmery which held immense affection for their servants, but it was just strange she was kissing him. Issei stopped his thinking when he felt someone grab onto his right arm. When he looked down, it was Kaneko who held onto his hand with both of hers and wrapped her tail around his right leg. I need some help walking. I feel weak, Kaneko said, lying. Rias glared at her, knowing she was, but Issei was clueless. Oh, here then, Issei said, picking Kaneko up like a princess, holding her to his muscular chest. Shall we go? Issei said. He looked around and noticed that the battle has stopped outside and that the area looked completely unharmed. It was strange, but it was magic. Rias grumbled something and entered the school once again, hoping to talk to the three people inside. Akeno prepared a teleportation circle, transporting the rest of the ORC back to the clubhouse. When they arrived, Issei placed Kaneko on the couch, then looked at Akeno. Akeno? Yes, sweetie? Akeno said sweetly. Is it okay if I head back home to take a shower? Of course, but you could just take one here. I don't have any of my cleaning supplies here though. Oh, we can handle that. What is it you use? Issei whispered it to Akeno, who then got them from her magic. The devils got free cleaning supplies since they owned a lot of companies. Issei nodded and bowed, thanking Akeno. Akeno nodded and left Issei alone, who went to take a shower. Issei climbed into the shower, turned on the hot water, then began to clean his body. He then rested his head on the cool tile, tired from the fight with Valley. While he was not injured at all, considering that Valley was much weaker in terms of physical abilities, the stamina that Issei used with his powerful strikes was quite a bit. He was tired and sweaty. He sighed happily, enjoying the hot water and the cold tiles. Issei was back and he was stronger. Much stronger. He now had multiple fighting strategies, about 4. 2 physical and 2 magical. He trained to become extremely strong to protect his friends and loved ones. He also trained because he enjoyed fighting, though he does enjoy his peace and quiet. Issei was back with the ORC and he was happy. Though he is still in for a bumpy ride dealing with the women of the ORC. Read. Review. Get some Fritos on your sub. Seriously, this is some good shit from Subway. I loved it. First, previous ch 20 of 39.